I can invite people to please take their seats and then we'll open the meeting. We're about to. Bring that chair in. The meeting. Whakataka te hau ki te uru, whakataka te hau ki te tonga. Kia ma kina ki uta, kia ma taratara ki tai. E hiake, ana te atakura, he tio, he huka, he hohu. Tihei mōre ora. Kia ora. Good morning and welcome. We'll start with item 1, apologies, and I've got an apology from Councillor Templeton for a partial absence and an apology from Councillor Tim Scandrett for lateness. I'm happy to move those apologies. Pauline, you'll second. All those in favour say aye. Against, that's carried. Declarations of interest. So we're noting a declaration of interest from the Mayor and from myself in item 20, the Christchurch Foundation. Item 3, confirmation of previous minutes. I'm happy to move those previous minutes. Sam will second. All those in favour say aye. And resolution to include the supplementary report. Can I have a mover? Sam will move. Sarah will second. All those in favour say aye. Against, that's carried. And now we move to item 4, which is the public forum. And I'd like to invite Nick Williams to the table. Nick, thank you for joining us this morning. And under the public forum, you've got 5 minutes to address the committee. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, Mayor, Councillors, everyone. The reason why I'm here is we all know the Canterbury Multi-Use Stadium will be built and a great asset for the city. It will house a number of events throughout the year, and what I am proposing is a tourist attraction which would be incorporated into the outside design of the stadium, which will make the stadium a draw card outside of planned events. Now, just to tell you a little bit more about what I'm proposing. I have a licensing agreement with the SWEB in Rotorua. What I can do is show you a photo here of the SWEB. So essentially what it is a dual monorail track with suspended cycle pods travelling up to 50 kilometres an hour. Instead of riding upright, you're actually lying down and pedalling. It's a mixture of manual and electric power over a 200 metre course. It was opened in 2007 by John Key in Rotorua and has since had over 300,000 rides. Currently it costs over $50 to experience, so 300,000 times $50 is 15 million in revenue. And I actually think the same concept here in the heart of Christchurch could do actually better, because where it is in Rotorua is located on the outskirts. So Boris Johnson, the current UK Prime Minister, was proposing a concept similar to this called the Fly outside the Olympic Stadium in London when he was the Mayor of London in 2011. So I also happen to have another licensing agreement with Skyride Technologies, which have a prototype track in the US. They have several products, but I'd like to add the Sky Chaser to the multi-use arena. So essentially what the Sky Chaser is you are suspended in a harness and lie horizontally and have an electric throttle. So essentially you ride like Superman at over 50 kilometres an hour. I actually think the Sky Chaser would be more popular than the Sweeb and would generate just as much in its own right. So I'm actually proposing 2 monorail tracks, one for the Sweeb and another for the Sky Chaser, which would have a few dips and turns and allow for side-to-side movement for guest experience. So this tourist attraction would be safe, fun, fast, quiet, cheaper than bungee jumping and competitive, as you can race against each other and would be a major draw card. Now, with all due respect to the tram and punting on the Avon, which is sedentary, these 2 attractions would be a little bit more high octane and get the blood pumping, so to speak. Like if you take Auckland, for example, they've got, with the Harbour Bridge, they've got a number of thrill-seeking attractions, and as does the Sky Tower, but Christchurch doesn't have something like this close to the heart of the city. So what I would like to propose is a cantilever system that it be adopted, whereby steel beams jut out at regular intervals around the outside of a stadium. These would be engineered in a way so that they would have adequate load-bearing capabilities. So essentially, 2 monorail tracks would be suspended off these steel beams with a Sky Chaser on top and the Sweeb underneath. A start-finish platform would need to be erected so that this could be positioned close to a toilet block, and a possible cafe snack bar could be located in close proximity as well. So if the council were to give the green light, what I would like to do is to speak to the stadium's structural engineer and architect to work out costs and in turn put forward a solid business plan, together outlining all indicative costs, because I feel this could be a great attraction for the city, and potentially Christchurch City Council could have a financial stake in this. Thank you for your time, and if there's any questions.
All right, so you've left a very short time for questions. James, you've indicated already that you've got a question.
Yes, kia ora, Nick, and congratulations. And where have you been all of our lives? It's a great idea.
Oh, so you'd like a little bit of a rundown about my experience? Or? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Look, thanks very much indeed for the presentation and for showing us those visuals this morning. And I mean, yeah, certainly your description of, you know, riding like Superman is definitely very different than anything that you could do on the tram or the punting. I mean, your idea obviously is that this could be integrated with the build of the stadium.
Yes.
I think what we should do is refer this to our staff, first of all to look at that suggestion, but also to look at what other possibilities there might be for the kind of thing that you're talking about as well.
Yes.
So, yeah, we have just given you the 5 minutes this morning, but it's certainly something that we can refer to our staff to see whether this is able to be integrated or added into, you know, maybe the stadium or maybe other things that are possibilities that could happen in the future.
Fantastic.
Thank you very much indeed for your time coming along this morning. Thank you. And we can just refer that to staff in that way. There's no need for us to pass a resolution to do so or anything. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. All right, so now moving on to item 5, deputations by appointment. There are none. Presentation of petitions, item 6, there are none. So that brings us to the performance exceptions report for January. And Peter, welcome to the table. And I'll just ask you to make any remarks on this report before we move to questions. Thank you.
Good morning, thank you. The overwhelming impression of this report is stability. Results are very much the same for levels of service and capital as they were in the last report. We've got some of the key managers here to help answer questions on some of the levels of service exceptions if that's required. But we're sitting at just over 80% on level of service delivery compared to 81 and a bit for September last year. So very stable view. Having said that, my team and the executive team have developed a process for targeting levels of service that might be salvageable before year end. So rather than a flat report that lists everything, we're now taking those ambers to the executive team and working with the managers concerned to say, look, these ones are the ones where you're quite close. With a bit of extra effort, focus, teamwork, intervention, it's possible these could be brought over the line by year end. And so for the second half of the year, there's quite a focus on getting those that might be rescued, and hopefully that 80% will go up to the 85 that you were looking for. There's not many required to do it, and the focus is there. We'll look at specific ones when we get to the exceptions appendix at the back. In terms of the capital program, the watch list, this is watch list projects in whole of life, which is different view from what the project management office will give you for the current year. We're sitting at 90%. You might notice from the historical trends graph there that both the major cycleways and watch list projects are significantly tighter compared to the historic norms. And the watch list has only really been at 90% once before since July 18. So both sets of work are coming in very close, being much more tightly managed than historically they have been. There's not much point in labouring some of the other graphs because they simply reflect that stability around the level of service delivery, and that takes us through to the exceptions themselves. At this point, I'll just remind you that I endeavour to answer the questions I can, but these cover the entire spectrum of council services, and there will be times when I can't answer and we need to defer to the subject matter expert. We have Helen here who can talk to any of the three water issues, but if it's a particularly technical issue, I may have to ask you for permission to come back with a report from the manager concerned rather than answering it on the spot. So if there are any questions about the exceptions, I'm happy to take them now or go back to the subject matter expert as required. There is also one level of service proposed for deletion, and we have some wording in the resolution on that. That is the level of service around supporting business sector resource efficiency. There's simply an error there from the staff that when the budget for that was cut in the last annual plan, the level of service that goes with that budget should have also been deleted. So the area is now seeking permission from council to formally delete that level of service. That won't trigger any consultation implications. It's not a significant level of service in a significant activity. Council can decide to delete it. We just need to notify audit to cover any reporting implications at year end. So with that, does anybody have any questions about the exceptions themselves?
All right, thank you, Peter, and thanks for highlighting, that one of the key features of this report is stability. Is that something that we're expecting to continue to be a theme until year end?
By and large, when you're at this point in the year, you're seeing very close to what you'll get at year end. That's historically the pattern. That doesn't mean something can't happen. We've certainly learned that over the years. But by and large, what we're trying to do is pull back that last 5% that we can find, rather than seeing any great volatility.
And thanks for drawing attention to that new, what you might call targeted intervention approach. That's highlighted in paragraphs 1.5 and 1.6 in the report. And thanks for highlighting that. And then my only other question relates to the level of service that's the subject of that additional recommendation. So this is the second bullet point on page 21 of our agenda. Out of the 5 new levels of service exceptions this month, 3 are forecast red will fail to meet target. 2 in strategic planning and policy for supporting business sector resource efficiency. This target will not be met because the consultancy budget was removed following the COVID lockdown budget review. So what we're saying, Peter, is that this was simply an error where we removed the funding and we made an error in not removing the corresponding levels of service at the same time.
That's correct. It was a difficult time of year for the staff, and it's simply an error. That the level of service should have been deleted at that time.
So just I guess more of a technical question. The report refers to 2 levels of service in strategic planning and policy, and the resolution just refers to 1 level of service. Is there a second level of service that should be added into this resolution?
No, the resolution's correct. It refers to level of service 17.0.34.2. While there are 2 that are exceptions, only 1 is proposed for deletion, and that's the resource efficiency one.
So the other one stands?
Yes.
So we're expecting to meet the level of service or to continue monitoring that level of service on the other one?
That's right, it stands.
So there was no error with one. The one in the resolution is the one that there was an error with?
Yes.
All right, that's fine. Thank you very much. All right, moving to other questions. Yanni.
Just note on the PT infrastructure that we're target's 86%.
Can you give page numbers
Yeah,
as you
sorry,
highlight
page
these as well?
28. The monthly average is 77%. I'm just really concerned at the remedial action because we've invested a lot in public transport bus priority lanes down Riccarton Road and Main North Road. And so are we able to get some sort of evaluation of what's causing the delay and what effectiveness that investment has had? Because some of us have raised continuously the concern that although we spend a lot of money on those projects, the benefit that we actually get for journey time isn't being matched because of other things that happen along that corridor. And, you know, Main North Road was a classic where we put a signalised pedestrian crossing that stopped traffic at the same time we put a clearway in for the bus to increase its flow. So I'm just concerned that we have a better remedial action in that one to really understand what's causing the problem, given the amount of money that we've invested in it.
That's a completely fair observation. I'll work with Richard to come back to you with a more detailed, a remedial action that will be more detailed.
Thank you. That'd be really
It's
good.
possible, and this is a horrible thing to do, that Lynette may be able to help.
I'll just speak to that one.
Oh, okay.
Through you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the bus priority measures throughout Christchurch, we don't actually have a comprehensive program or suite or network of bus priority measures. We have a lot of bits and parts of the network which work. They work okay, to put it bluntly. They're not very well aligned at this stage, and hence the reason why the organisation has approved the business case late last year to put more investment into public transport and ensure that those key routes, the 5 key routes, do have public transport priority measures along them. But at the moment there are a lot of gaps in those key corridors. So that's one of the reasons why you will see that level of service that we struggle to meet. Of course, as you'll be aware, we also don't run the buses, and there's only so much we can do as an organisation to improve on that. We can provide the PT priority measures, but there's a whole lot of things which influence the efficiency of the bus service, and we're just a bit player in that.
So sorry, can we get a report back then, or a memo on the journey time savings that have accrued to the bus priority lanes that we've put in, and what the expected outcome was when we approved the project versus what's actually happened since those bus lanes are in? Is that something we could get?
Could you tell me a project you're referring to? You're referring to the Papanui Road ones or the Riccarton Road ones?
There's Riccarton Road and there's Papanui Road.
So that, yeah, look, in terms of Riccarton Road, in terms of Papanui Road, we put some measures in pre-quake, but there was always a gap along Main North Road, of which we've addressed recently. So, but there's still gaps in that network. If you look at Merivale as well, obviously the buses get held up along there. So we haven't got a continuous network of
Well,
bus
that's not my
priority
question.
measures
That's
along.
with respect, like my question is, for the investment that we've made on the basis of which we've made it to get the benefit, how do we know how that's performing? That's all I'm interested in.
Mr Chair, it's too early for this data, in all fairness. Richard's telling us that it's not complete yet, so we can't really...
Mr Chair, it's a bit like putting in, say you've got a major cycleway and you put in a couple of sections and you've left out another section. Of course, it's not going to work at an optimal manner. If you put in the whole program, that's when you get the benefits, and that's what the business case the council endorsed prior to Christmas.
I understand that, but when we approved, we had a big debate at this council, and we were given benefit journey times of approving the expenditure, right? And all I'm asking for is to understand what's happened with those journey times, not the whole route. I appreciate that for the whole route it'll be different, right? But for the ones that we've signed off on as a council, on the basis of this is the improvement that's going to happen, we must be able to measure that.
So has the project delivered the improvements that were expected, realising that that's only a small part of
And I'm not
that
expecting
particular
staff to
route?
answer that today, but I think when you look at this performance measure and see that we're not meeting that target, it would be good to understand the nature of the investment that we've made and the benefits that we expected to see whether it's happened or not.
All right, so Richard, are you able to take that away and come back to us with an answer, which may reflect the answer that you've provided verbally, but there may be something that goes back to the information that was put in front of council when we made that decision, and whether we're achieving what was expected from the decision that we made at that time, comparing what's happening on the ground to service improvements that we expected from any information that was provided to support the decision.
Yes, Mr Chair, I can come up with something.
Great,
Thank you.
Thanks. And just the final question from me was on page 30, and it's just looking at the roads and footpaths, the respond to customer service requests within appropriate timeframes, and it says changes are still required to the high-risk SLA response times pending provision of transport ticket structure. It's a key priority. Changes already made have shown truer reporting, better reflecting our response to currently 80% compared to 33% that was being reported, and greater than 80 is council's typical target, which is now being achieved. I just found that section quite confusing. So basically, our target is greater than 95%. We've got a typical target that's lower than that, and there's a change to the system which has increased it from 33% to 80%.
So essentially what that's largely referring to is transport maintenance contracts, and within them we have different response times across the board. So depending on what it is, you know, the maintenance contractor should be responding either within a few hours, or it might be something more substantive that takes months within which for us to come up to a solution with the problem. When you know, these were initially put in through the hybrid system, it probably didn't reflect the range of response times in there, so that was the rationale for the low percentage, because some of the things we were just never going to do within a 24-hour turnaround time, and that's what we had for some of those things. So say you got someone who complains about a pothole in a road. Now, if we were coming along a month later and resurfacing that road, we wouldn't go in and fill in the pothole. Now, what that might have shown on Hybris is that we failed our level of service because we have a 48-hour turnaround time for potholes or something like that. But you know, that was a deliberate fail, if for want of a better description, because we wouldn't want to do something twice. So now Hybris better reflects what our turnaround times are and what's in our contracts. So that's why we're getting up to a level of circa 80%. It's not as good as we'd like it to be, but it's a significant improvement on what it was previously. I think the challenge for us this year is that, you know, in transport we get 36,000 Hybris tickets a year. This year the trend and numbers seems to be higher than what we've had in previous years. So, you know, we're struggling to keep up with the demand for them.
So just, I mean, I just wanted to acknowledge the team that do the water supply. The reporting that we got eventually in the memo was excellent, and it gave a really good breakdown around the response times and where we were failing and what we were delivering on. And I thought, actually, that's quite good. I wonder if we can get something similar for transport, because it is quite hard just to look at this and kind of understand. But I think it was really, really good from the water supply guys when they showed us, here's the extent of the problem, here's the ones that we're currently meeting the target for, the urgent, here's the ones that are overdue, and here's the process to get caught up.
Yeah, this is just a very high level snapshot. Obviously, there's a lot of detail that sits underneath that. But if you want me to prepare a memo which better outlines the kind of the trends, and we have all that data readily available, so and we can graph it up for you.
And would it show key areas where we're not meeting our target versus the ones that we are? Like the
we can certainly do that. And it's not specific to some of it's locational, so it's geographic as well. So it's just, but anyway, we can come back to you with that.
And then I guess related to that is, what's the remedial plan? Like, we're being overwhelmed with demand. Are you seeking extra budget? I know further in our report, there's actually an underspend because we've reduced maintenance on road landscape. So, you know, again, can we get a clear remedial action and cost if we want to catch up to the target, or maybe we don't? But
we can provide you with an update on where we've been at in previous years and where we're at this year and how we intend to address it. So it's not necessarily just a matter of chucking additional resource at it. We can be more efficient in terms of how we do things. In terms of the road maintenance contract and the underspend in there, that's a separate issue to the one you're raising here, which is around hybrid tickets. So I'd be happy to speak to that if you want me to, or if that's another question.
All right, thank you. Now I've got Jimmy and then Mike. Jimmy.
Thank you, Chair. I have two questions. First, on page 24, regarding to the water supply, I just don't know how to measure, those percentage, because in here you emphasize urban residence supply, those percentage target 99.8, but actually is 0. But under those, your information looks like it's not a 0, so I don't know. Because work underway, reconfirm those 3 secure board. Criteria 1, you down to 20% and 60%. So I don't know how to evaluate this one. Or you just one perfect, 100, then 0. But you still have progress, I don't know. And also whether each criteria have any time frame or milestone to follow up.
So Helen, I might get you to come to the table to answer that particular set of questions.
On page 24.
Thank you.
So, in short, until we've met each of those 3 criteria, 100%,
yes,
we cannot get protozoal sign-off. So, making progress doesn't mean you can have half sign-off. You've either completed or you haven't.
Oh, so that's a criteria. But how about criteria 2? Because you have under, the
criteria.
Kind of
Criteria 2 is
several temperate below ground. What's the target that can fix it?
Criteria 2 we have completed in terms of we have sufficient wellheads now to supply the city. Okay. So the other ones that we're doing are the temporary below ground ones which can be raised up, and some replacement wells. So we're complete on criteria 2, and criterion 3, similarly, we meet that within the city. But until we complete criterion 1, complete that work to the satisfaction of the drinking water assessor, we cannot get sign-off.
Okay, thank you. Second question on page 31. 31 is regarding the parks and the foreshore. The target is 100% customer service request, but actually it's a 66%. I just want to know regarding to the community parks, the presentation. At the moment, not yet done, am I right? When this will be, will be the happen?
I'm sorry, I can't speak to the parks CSRs in any detail, Jimmy. I'll have to work with Andrew Rutledge to come back to you with a reply on that.
Okay.
Thank you. So if you can come back to us on that one, that'll be fine. Jimmy, thank you. Mike.
Thank you. I didn't have any questions till there was a comment from a previous councillor about a signalised pedestrian crossing on Main North Road. So I just wonder if I could ask Richard a question on that to actually clarify. Thanks, Richard. I guess the comment was that we've put in a crossing that stops buses. That crossing is actually at the super stop where buses stop and is there to allow the bus users to actually cross the road safely. Is that correct?
That's correct. It
Thank
provides legibility between incoming and outgoing buses. Yep.
Thank you. All right, are there any further questions? All right, so I'm happy to move what are now 2 resolutions in front of us, to receive the information provided in the report and then to remove the level of service that we discussed earlier. I'm happy to move those. Do I have a seconder? Jimmy Chen. All those, is there any debate on this? All those in favour say aye. Against? That's carried. Okay, so then moving on to the next item, item 8, the Capital Project Performance Report. So Ruth, welcome to the table. Thank you for joining us. And if we can just take any introductory remarks first of all, then we'll move to questions. Thank you.
Good morning, Chair. Good morning, councillors. So Capital Project Report as of December.
Mic on.
Better?
That's better.
There we go.
Thank you.
Hello. Did you hear me? Do you want me to repeat myself? Okay, cool. So I'll make some general comments on the content of the report. We've got the delivery unit leads in the room to answer any specific questions. You will notice that there has been a slight change in the project names within the report, and this will be ongoing. They won't change any further. But we have done a complete review of our project names, changing our naming conventions so that they are a little bit more understood by our citizens as well as internally. So those project names will be reflected in the long-term plan and in our long-term plan tool. So in terms of the content of the report, our financial year position, since last report to the committee, external funding from our shovel-ready projects and our water reform has been added to the financial year budget. So that has increased our financial year budget from 513 million, which we reported in November, to 552 million. In terms of our forecasts, page 44, we're now reporting the core program separately from the external funded and the multi-use and the metro. This just ensures that we can continue to provide a good view on how we're tracking to deliver on the core program, and that's our core commitments from the financial year 21 annual plan. So against the core program of 375 mil, project managers are forecasting 398.5. Against the external funded 66.9, forecasting a spend of 53.6. Across the whole program, we're looking to see an overall carry forward of 35.7 million based on the data from our project managers. You'll see that there's detailed carry forward and bring back information on page 49 to 53. So forecasts to the end of financial year, you will see from pages 45 to 48, there's some pretty decent forecasts coming up in the months ahead. There are specific commentary in relation to the kind of key drivers that are pushing those monthly forecasts to that level. So I'm going to make some general comments on the current position that we're in order to deliver on those forecasts. But if you have any specific queries in relation to the delivery programs, then I will be deferring to the delivery heads. So in terms of general comments, spend to date at December was 193.5. This is an improved position at the same time last year of 188. So with an outturn last year of 380, despite COVID, we're on track to deliver a similar or a better result. To validate that, we have 243 projects in construction at the moment, forecasting 299, and that compares to last year of 225, forecasting 237. So from that original forecast of 237 last year, despite COVID, we still delivered 190. Our core program is forecasting a bring back of 9.5. So that's also a very unique situation from previous years. Usually by this point, we're forecasting a pretty reasonable carry forward. So that means we are in an improved position to accommodate any unforeseen issues within that program that may occur in the remaining months. So to that end, our core program remains focused on delivering to that 375. And finally, our forecast accuracy. So in the last 12 rolling months, we have been around about 90% accuracy. COVID claims, page 54, in the last committee report, we had paid out 72%. We're now sitting at 93% of all claims and interim and final costs having been paid out. So we are at the end of the negotiations with only 4 claims left to be resolved. We'll now take any questions.
Thank you. So thanks for the update. Obviously, that bring back of 9.9 or 9.5, that's something that we'll be keeping an eye on over the next few months. Deliverability of 50 million a month or in excess of 50 million a month for the rest of the financial year. Have you got a high level of confidence in that being able to be delivered? It seems quite ambitious. Just keen to get some further commentary around that.
Yeah, definitely. So it is ambitious when you compare it to previous years, but in terms of the position we are with projects in construction, we're doing better than we have in previous years as well. There are 3 kind of delivery units that are driving those forecasts, and so I thought it would be quite helpful for the committee to hear from them directly. So Transport are forecasting 55, 3 Waters are forecasting 75, and Major Facilities 40. So I think it'd be good, maybe Richard, Lynette? If Transport, then 3 Waters and Facilities could kind of speak to how they've got their program set up to deliver on the current forecasts.
Yeah, because certainly that 50 or 50 plus does seem ambitious, but you know, if we've got a high level of confidence around that, then that's excellent.
From Transport's perspective, we do, in the sense that we have a large number of works in train and they are contracted. So the bulk of ours sit either with major cycleways that are shovel-ready funded, and we've got currently about 5 or 6 contracts running. On top of that, we've got our maintenance contracts and other big contracts like Martians Road Bridge, Dyers Pass barriers. So there's a number of really big contracts out there, so we are confident that it's a realistic and pragmatic estimate of what we're going to spend.
Excellent. Thank you. It's good to hear.
John?
Presently, we've got about $70 million out in the market being evaluated or in tender. We've got about $15 million in land purchase being lined up for expenditure this financial year. And we're also in delivery of a significant program in our stormwater area right as we speak, as this is our delivery period in the drier period. So it's looking pretty good. We've had some savings which have suppressed a bit of what appears to be spend, and that is being redirected to next year's renewals and renewals of lead jointed pipes. So in that space, I think that the 3 Waters delivery is pretty much as described in the reports.
So you're confident that the contribution to the 50 million or thereabouts a month that we're looking at coming from 3 Waters, you're confident that that is deliverable as planned?
Yes, I am.
Thank you. Excellent. Thank you very much.
And then finally, Facilities.
I'll see. So the 3 projects in particular are, one is a bring back, which is to Linwood Pools, which is bringing back a sum of money. The 2 other projects are CMUA and Metro Sports Facility, Metro Sports Facility being the larger of the 2, and that's regarding the forecast that's been presented to us by Otakaro. From a council perspective, we monitor that every month. And we pay against the invoices that come in, but again, their forecast is compounded by the COVID-19 issues and their programme issues. They won't provide a reforecast until their financial year end is completed. With regards to CMUA are predicted sums that were indicative forecasts that were given to us right at the very early days. We're now in a conclusion of an RFP, which is in negotiation with a preferred tenderer, and it's a due process that we're going through, and once we're through that process, we'll have a revised forecast which will inform the next year's spend profile. So.
All right, so I think a key point there is that the Metro Sports facility, given that it's not a project that we're constructing or delivering, is out of control, and we're relying on information that's provided to us. Obviously, you're getting those monthly updates and you're feeding those into what we see. Yeah, it's worth pointing that out, because, of course, that's not a project which has been delivered by council.
And John Bridgman did attend council at the last meeting to outline where they were at.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. Ruth, I think it's been incredibly helpful having unit managers come in front of us to provide that level of confidence. You know, it's great that you're providing figures in a report at a high level, but I think, you know, particularly at this stage in the year, it's good for us to hear that level of confidence coming from unit managers that in turn can give us a level of confidence that whilst these numbers are ambitious, they are actually deliverable. So thank you for setting it up that way. Was there anything else that you wanted to say before we move to questions?
I just think, to your point, with the committee's agreement, the way that the deliverability commentary by month is currently provided in the report could be split out by delivery unit so that you can see the contribution each delivery unit is making to that month.
Given the comments I just made, I think that would be really helpful. Thank you.
Right.
So now moving to questions. Aaron.
Yeah, a couple, Ruth. One is under some of the risks when we have, page 57, under exchange rate, you know, any hike in the US dollar may impact project costs. At present, this is not impacting project costs, but has the potential to do so. But can go the other way as well, which it has since the election. The US dollar's weakened considerably, so we're about 10 cents better off now. Does that factor in that way? Do we get a win, or do all the suppliers just go, no, when we locked in the contract, the dollar was that, so we'll do that. But when it goes the other way, they'll go, oh, dollar's gone up.
I don't know the detail of the costs that we get on each specific project, so that would probably be a question for delivery units.
Yeah,
Can
because
anyone
it's just
comment?
highlighted for going when the dollar goes north, but when it goes south, which it has done since the election, thank goodness, it's quite a lot of money.
Lynette, is that something that you can
I can
comment
provide
on?
a comment too, but I can't necessarily answer the detail of the question. When we set up our contracts, it does depend on how those contracts are set up. So if it is dependent on fluctuating, if materials are dependent on fluctuating exchange rates, and we take that risk, then we take the risk either way.
Oh, so we do get a win sometimes?
Yep.
Cool. That's good to hear. And then the other one is on the contracts and the claims that were being made. As last year panned out, in the end, a number of companies that had put in like wage subsidy claims end up paying back because their end of year results were a lot better than expected. In fact, some are even better than if you hadn't had COVID. Are those any of those companies that have paid back the wage subsidy still putting a claim into the council?
We haven't received...
Because they've had a really good year.
We haven't received any new claims.
And any withdrawn claims?
The claims that we have, the contractual claims that we have paid out on have been under the conditions of the contract. So they have been for materials of works done that weren't included or that weren't considered because, so they're a variation to the contract. So the claims that we have made have been under the terms and conditions of the contract and under contract law. How the companies run their business is their business, and we haven't got into that. That is not what we've done in these claims.
Yeah. So, I mean, those contracts were written pre-COVID, obviously, and then COVID comes around, which makes for a very different year. So, yes, they can claim because of time loss and things like that. So, yep, they put in the
Or they
claim.
actually had to do extra work or types of work that they didn't intend having to do at the start of the contract.
Right.
So, we have to pay for that. So, for example, when we knew we were going into lockdown and we had our contractors up on Cranford Street, we asked them to close the site and get rid of the cones so that the people living on that street weren't living in amongst a work site for 4, 6, 8 weeks.
Yeah.
So they put extra asphalt down that they didn't have, you know, they closed up pits that they didn't intend to have to do. So they did work that they didn't intend to have to do, and we have to pay for that.
Yeah, and that's
So, and that's what our
100%
claims
fair.
have been.
Oh, so they're only
That's
those.
what our
Okay.
COVID claims are.
Brilliant. So there's none for.
I can't answer that definitively, and it's not a question I would ask of the business. That's how they run their business. Our claims are under our contract for items that they have done, and they're entitled to under their contract.
Okay. So yeah. Right. Okay.
Thank you. Jimmy.
I have two questions. First one on page 62. Regarding to the one of watch the list, the Horsewell Junction Road extension, particularly in here the risk, mitigate. I just want to know regarding the key rail program that works, all those kind of rail crossing, potential land contamination. My question and concern is because this forecast delivery date will be in May of 2022, only 1 year plus, whether this is under control or out of control, this risk.
It's definitely under control.
Yes. No problem.
No.
Okay, thank you. Second question is on page 65. The South Express, particular stage 1 from Templeton to the High Road. Those one, we enter into a detailed design, but the community, their particular concern, the particular traffic, pedestrian walkway, the safety issue, staff particular mention will be, the presenter to the community board and also the wider community in February. First question is whether this concern has been reflected to our detailed design. Second is now, my understanding, February didn't happen, whether it's postponed to March or not.
So the design has been undertaken and the community concerns have been taken into consideration. We are having continuing discussions with the community and the community group, as you're aware, about the concerns along Waterloo Road and others. As part of that, we have brought forward the construction of the Hornby Primary, the crossing outside Hornby Primary on High Road. So that is going to be delivered early, ahead of the delivery of the rest of the cycleway in that area. South Express Cycleway currently has 3 contracts underway, another one in tender and another one due to tender in a couple of months. So we're getting out towards High Road now. We've always been building it from the city out. We are having continuing discussions with the residents group, as I said, and we have a briefing with the community board, with all of the community board, on the 9th. I think it had to get delayed to the 9th of March. But that is to take into account all the concerns that are being raised in that area. Staff are also looking at whether there's other things that can be done. So that will all be discussed at the briefing.
Thank you.
Jimmy, just on the Kiwi Rail matter that you raised in the first question, I raised with Minister Grant Robertson exactly that issue as an example of a number of issues that are happening around the country at the moment. He's very aware. Obviously, the government have got a focus on mode shift and climate change issues. He's very aware of that issue. So it's been picked up at that level as well.
Through the chair, we've seen benefit of that conversation. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Welcome. It's good to know that a joined-up approach is working. Excellent.
One of shovel-ready program, and also is kind of severe delay for several years.
Yep.
Community and the basic particular concern this project.
Yep. So we've got progress. That's good. Pauline.
Thank you. I've just got a question on page 60, I think, about the St Albans Community Centre. Can you explain, so the current approved budget, the current forecast and the actual to date, so approved and forecast is 3.9 million. How, and then, what does that mean? I always thought it was 3.2.
Yeah, the total life-to-date budget since inception is 3.9.
Sorry, can you say that again?
The total life-to-date budget, all of start to finish is 3.9, and that's what we're forecasting to here. That's what Ruth's report shows us.
Oh, I was under the impression it was 3.2, so, and it's nearly finished.
Yeah, great news. The team are on site at the moment. We're looking to issue practical completion within the next 10 days, which gives us a clear month out till the opening on the 10th.
Are we going to come in under the 3.9?
We're going to come in, this will be a successful project delivered under budget.
Okay, well that's great for me to hear, because there's a couple of things that we need there. And one of them is really, really important. It's the actual name on the side of the building.
I've brought a colleague who can talk to that, Paul McKeefery.
So,
and it's not going to cost
no, we
very
don't want
much
you
to
do.
No, I'm no good at doing signs. So my understanding is that Richie Moyle, who's the project manager, is attending the community board next week. He is looking at options in relation to the name, and what is the design of the particular name that is.
Well, the news to date, in all fairness, is the feedback we've had at the board is that there's no budget for a sign on the building. There's a sign for a freestanding sign, funding for a freestanding sign outside. And the quote that they've had is $12,000 to put a name on the building.
The important thing to add, though, is the sign was originally in the design,
yes,
and it was taken off to reduce the cost of the overall building. So if we're actually under budget, that should be reinstated.
So can we take that offline from this meeting, but can we make sure it's taken away in a way that it's going to be handled and dealt with?
Yes.
Because, I mean, Richie's done a wonderful job there, but sometimes I get the feeling that his hands are tied when it comes to budget allowances, and he's really trying to stick to the 3.2. But for me, a sign, and a good sign on the building, we have unofficially decided we've been gifted a Māori name as well, is really, really key. It's an amazing looking building, and it would be such a shame to have it let down without a really good naming on the side of it.
Paul and I are very happy to talk to you.
So let's take that offline, but let's see whether we can get to an ideal outcome, which is a project that still comes in under budget, but with a sign attached to the outside of the building.
Yep.
So is there any chance that we could get the accessibility ramp off the deck then at the same time?
Can we take this conversation offline? There are clearly a number of features that are going to be a part of that discussion.
That's it, just the two things.
All right, that's fine. Now, I've got Yanni and then Sarah. Yanni.
Yeah, I was just thinking of the residents in Oldport Place around the Littleton Harbour wastewater scheme. I mean, that street has basically, since the earthquake had works in it, that project's now looking like it's delayed again. There seems to be a whole bunch of issues with it. Is there anything that we can do to address it if it's delayed? Can we make it look nice and a bit like what we heard before? Or can we get good communication to those residents about what's actually going on?
Well, I think we commented on this at the pre-meeting. Yeah. There had been a delay with the delivery of a bespoke valve for that position, and they were undertaking some work on the valve pit, which was expected to be completed around about now, and we were going to disestablish or tidy it up, communicate with the residents, and then come back in 2 months' time when we expected that valve to arrive from overseas.
So it should all be tidied up now?
Very soon, yes.
Right, and has there been a notice go to residents to explain what's going on?
Yep, they're talking to the residents continually about the progress on that.
Can we get normally at a community board level we'd get a start work notice on things, but I mean I've gone back through.
Yeah, I guess in that space, because it's work in progress, there hasn't been any further start work notices because it's actually started.
Right, okay. I mean, it's just quite common that we would get like an update when, if things are delayed or, so anyway, I'll just feed that back, but it's good to hear that that's on track. I just wanted to thank staff for organising a site visit to the Chilm Street brick barrel. I just thought it's actually really good when you get an opportunity to see firsthand what some of the issues are, particularly with projects that are red. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say that if there were opportunities going forward, I think it's really valuable to hear firsthand. When you see it, you can actually understand why things may not be as
if councillors have a specific interest in a project, we would invite you to come and talk to us, and we'd be very happy to show you around any of them.
Great. I just had, there was another one here that had the levels wrong, and I was just, sorry, I just can't quite find it, but it said that we were having to go back because the levels were wrong in terms of the work that was done. So, yeah, I was just concerned about that. Sorry, I just can't, just looking through.
Shall we come back to you, Yanni, once you've found that one?
Yeah, I had another question about the arena, the Metro Sports Facility. It says delays are due to slower progress than current construction program. Construction program currently being reviewed by contractor in Otakaro. Have we got any idea what's happening there? Why it's delayed? What the problem is? I mean, this has been something that's been raised repeatedly.
Yeah.
We've sort of been reassured that it's been on track, and now it seems like something's going wrong.
We can't. I can't talk directly to how they're project managing that project. We're obviously cognizant that there's been a great deal of work occurred over the last few months, certainly within the structural steel and the cladding. They're showing great progress, there's no doubt, but there'll be a massive catch-up that they're in the process of doing. They can make big headways into structural steel programs and erection of steel and cladding for the exteriors and the pools, but they are ultimately in delay, and they are working through that progress. And it is a contractual discussion that Otakaro will be having with CPB as the main contractor. To date, they're indicating that there's a possibility of time being pulled back, but you can see from the spend forecast that that's not actually occurring. So it's a pretty obvious point that they are going to be in delay. We're just waiting for them to confirm what that delay is.
We don't have any sense of it's a year or months?
No, we can't tell. I can't tell you that because I can't tell you what their program of work is. They have not updated the program. They've not come back to us because they're in contractual discussions with CPB. So, but it's obvious from the spend forecast that they're in delay because you need to meet a dollar spend in order to get to where you've got to go to.
All right. Okay.
If we wanted a fuller update, an idea might be to get John Bridgman back at some point, either to the next iteration of this meeting.
So Mark Noonan, yes, so through the chair, sorry. Mark Noonan represents council's interest from the management of the contract from our side. So I'll talk to Mark when he's back at work, and we'll discuss getting John and their financial team in the room to discuss how they're going with progress and how they're going with the contractual client.
Yep. Clearly, it's an area of interest for us. I mean, it may well be that things have moved on, or we've got more certainty within the next month before the next meeting. But it would be good to get an update so that we know exactly where we're at.
Just on page 59, I just had 3 questions. Hereford Street Bridge surface replacement. It says there's a forecast overspend to signal pole relocations, and the project manager is currently reviewing budgets in order to confirm final cost. There was also some discussion around the bollards as well. So it's not mentioned in that specific one, but I think it was mentioned in a different one. So I'm just kind of curious when we, what's the change process for Hereford Street if there's significant extra cost? Because I guess with the bollards, I wasn't really happy the way that process, the cost seemed to go up quite considerably, and I don't think we had good visibility of that. So are we going to get a report to council?
Any changes as a result of contractual requirements or financial changes that will be undertaken as per the agreed financial delegations that we work within.
So all council decision making on that project is complete. Everything that remains to be done is either within the project or within staff delegation. Is that correct?
And if it's not, it will be reported back to council.
So choosing the cost of the bollards based on the terror risk, like I don't recall us ever getting a report saying here's the options. Simply money was added and the budget was increased considerably.
The discussion was had at the annual plan session. So that my understanding is the bollards, the discussion was had at the last annual plan.
There was an increase in the line item, but there was no specific report that said, based on the terror threat, we're spending X.
There was briefings too and discussions with the appropriate committee about that one.
From memory, there were 2 briefings.
That's my understanding.
From a decision-making point of view, the whole matter's within staff delegation, but elected members were given the courtesy of a briefing where we provided guidance, which has then influenced the way that staff have exercised their ability to delegate.
That's exactly right, and the changes in budget were brought through the annual plan process.
Yeah.
Okay. I just find it weird, like, St Albans can't get $12,000 for a sign, gets taken off and they're struggling, and we've got significant changes.
Okay, can we stick to questions?
All right.
Thank you.
The other question was in the Insour's Fifield, Lewis and Main renewal wastewater. The contract is complete. However, additional stages now required 80 metres upstream to correct a level discrepancy and replace poor condition pipes. So I was just trying to check why that wasn't picked up at the start of the project.
There was a survey error, and when they came to connect to the manhole, they found that the pipe didn't match at the appropriate level. So the resolution to that was to extend the laying of the pipe and bring forward the replacement of another section of pipe, which was going to be done in the following financial year.
Will there be like a closeout report that determines how that could occur? Because it seems pretty basic.
It was a survey error by one of our consultants. We could talk to them about their professional indemnity, but the loss to the council is effectively nil because it was pipe that was going to be replaced anyway.
Okay. And the final question I had was on the just on the top one, the water supply reactive water meter renewal. Additional budget required to fund water meter replacements for FY21. A change request of 2.9 million has been submitted. I know we've also got a smart water meter program as well, and I think I'm just trying to understand at what point do we make the call to go to a smart meter technology rather than bring forward money to do the existing replacement.
So we are going to run a trial of smart meters out in the Rafiti zone, and following that trial we will look at the rollout across the city. However, the meters that we're putting in at the moment, the so-called dumb meters, can be upgraded by putting the smarts on top. So we won't be closing off any options by putting those meters in.
But there'd be a huge additional cost to retrofitting and making
No,
them
there would be a
smart,
very small additional cost. So you just pop them on top.
so it won't cost a lot.
That's correct. Yeah. And the reactive water meter replacement program is to address the leaks at the Toby boxes that are being reported around the city. So instead of doing repairs on those Toby boxes where the meters are quite elderly, we're replacing the whole meter assembly, and that means that we don't come back 2 or 3 times. And we're also improving the backflow prevention at those sites.
So what's the cost of just putting in a replacement meter as we're doing now versus putting in a smart meter versus coming back and putting a smart thing on at a later date?
I'll have to come back to you with those precise costs.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so moving on with questions. Sarah and then Aaron and then James. Sarah.
Oh, listen, I can take mine offline to save time. It's fine.
All right, thank you. Aaron.
Yeah, mine was just around the St Albans Community Centre. Is that approximately 400 square metres? Is that the size, or is it bigger?
It is approximately 400 square metres.
And is that price, the 3.9, is that the build cost, or is that including the land purchase?
No, that's everything required from start to finish to deliver the project. It's not the construction cost. It's not the land cost. It includes a number of things. The purchase of 130 Caledonian Road, staff, time, resource consent, everything you need to deliver the project. So if you're I'm preempting a question about square metre costs potentially.
Yeah, like you do with most projects. Like if I was going to buy a house, I'd...
So when the QS bottoms it out, we've got an external, as we do on all our jobs, a professional consultancy running the numbers on us. I'll happily provide this committee with the final square metre cost.
Thank you. Yep, if we can get that just by way of a memo or an email, that'd be perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, well, you take off the land costs and then every other
Looking
cost
at
is.
the build cost for the actual box.
Yep. So
Yeah.
if you can provide the cost and the basis on which you've arrived at it, that would be excellent.
Yep.
Thank you.
Happy to do that.
Okay. James.
Actually, my questions of, through you, Ruth, to Helen, is that possible?
So, Helen, if we can bring you
about
back
that.
to the table. So I'm guessing this is on a water matter.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I don't know why they all just don't sit on the front row.
Sorry, I didn't realise that she was leaving.
No, that's all right. No problem. It's good that we've got the right people in the room for
look,
these questions. Thank
just
you.
quickly, about the smart meter trial in the Rāwhiti zone, what was the reason for using that area?
That zone has recently been disconnected from the central zone, if you like, and we chose that because it's got a number of new pump stations. It's both a large enough and small enough zone to test the technology, and we just regard that as the best spot for it.
I like the answer, but I just want to check that wouldn't mean that zone would be the first to pay excess water charges.
No, it won't make any difference. We can advance that if you wish. We could use that.
That
as
was a
trial.
statement, not a question. Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right. So are there any more questions on this capital project performance report? Okay. So I'm happy to move this. Do I have a seconder? Aaron? Is there any debate? All those in favour say aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. Now moving on to item 9, the Water Services Bill draft submission. Now this has been the subject of a couple of briefings. There's been quite a bit of work done in the background in preparing this submission. And there may well be some matters raised today that require some further changes to be made, in which case delegating sign-off probably will be the way to go in that case. So, Diane, did you want to make some introductory remarks on this?
Sure, I'll try to be brief. As you know, the Water Services Bill is the second in a series of pieces of legislation as part of the government's 3 water reform program. The first one was enacting Taumata Arawai Water Services Regulator Act in the middle of last year, which established Taumata Arawai as the water services regulator. But a second bill was needed, which is this one, the Water Services Bill, which lays out the roles and responsibilities of Taumata Arawai, as well as roles and responsibilities of drinking water suppliers, and in addition to local authorities. The bill's largely focused on drinking water. There are some provisions for wastewater and stormwater, but mostly it's around drinking water. There are some differences between what the bill has in it and what the Health Act, which deals with drinking water, has in it. While both the Health Act and the bill talk about drinking water suppliers having to do drinking water safety plans, there's a new provision in the bill that drinking water suppliers who have reticulated supplies have to provide for residual disinfection in their drinking water safety plans, unless an exemption has been granted by Taumata Arawai. It's not clear from the way the bill is written whether those exemptions could be sought and granted for drinking water supplies like ours that don't already have residual disinfection. So one of the big differences between the current situation under the Health Act and what the bill provides for is the scope of the drinking water suppliers who are subject to the legislation. Under the current situation under the Health Act, drinking water suppliers that serve 25 people or more, 60 or more days a year, fall under the provisions of the Health Act. If you've got less than that, then you don't. The bill, the Water Services Bill, changes that and basically would apply to any drinking water supplier other than a residential self-supplier. So in other words, if you've got your own rainwater tank or your own bore and you don't supply anybody else, that's a self-supplier. But any other type of drinking water supply would be subject to the bill the way it's currently written. The bill also makes some amendments to the Local Government Act, which includes provisions that would that could require territorial authorities to take over private supplies that are or could be at risk of failing to meet drinking water requirements. The draft submission itself, the way it's currently structured, is sort of in two parts. The first part focuses on key areas of concern. Right now, that's two areas. One is the requirement for residual disinfection of reticulated drinking water supplies, and the second is source water protection and treatment. The draft submission with regard to residual disinfection points out that it is possible for drinking water supplies to be demonstratively safe without residual treatment. And the submission also raises concerns about the uncertainty over how exemptions to residual treatment will be granted and the process of seeking redress if a drinking water supplier wishes to challenge the decision of the regulator. As right now, the regulator, the way the bill is written, the regulator can grant or not an exemption to residual disinfection on grounds that it pleases. So they're not specified. In regard to source water protection, the requirement for physical treatment of source water, the draft submission points out that source water risk management plans and drinking water safety plans can provide a multi-barrier approach. And the submission also talks about the fact that confined aquifers naturally provide for removal of particles and pathogens. And the submission is also seeking, in terms of source water protection, to do more to protect sources of drinking water, as there's gaps that aren't really addressed in the bill about that. And instruments such as the National Policy Statement for Freshwater Management really don't deal very well with groundwater and protection of groundwater. The submission also has, in the second part, a number of recommendations on more technical matters. One of them has to do with the amendment to the Local Government Act, having to do with territorial authorities having to take over failing private drinking water suppliers. And I think I'll stop there and open it up for questions.
Thank you. So are there any questions on this, Leanne?
I'm happy to move it.
Yep.
Just a question that's come to my mind. Do you think there should be a differentiation between surface water suppliers and groundwater supplies?
I think it would. My answer would be it depends.
Oh, that's a good answer.
It depends on it depends on the source. But yeah, I think there's some pretty obvious differences that, in general, it would be hard to find a surface water supply that doesn't have a fairly high probability of
risk,
being subject to contamination of one sort or another, just because it's open to the environment.
Yeah.
Whereas groundwater is naturally protected because it isn't.
Yes.
But I mean, there's certainly some
And then
there's
groundwater, and ours is particularly pressurised.
Groundwater versus more shallow groundwater.
Yes, yes. Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions on this? All right, so Leanne, you've indicated you're happy to move this. Sarah, you've indicated you're happy to second. So moved by the Mayor, seconded by
Who
Sarah
just needs
Templeton.
to say delegate the Chair and Mayor the authority
Yep.
to sign the final submission?
Yep. So that allows for any changes to be made just to finalise this.
And if you could pop me in as the person to make this submission. I mean, I don't mind if anyone else wants to do that as well. So number 4, just
just to be represented by the Mayor.
And supported by appropriate staff.
Yep. Excellent. All right, so that's been moved and seconded. Is there any debate? All right, so I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Thank you. All right, now, We might at this point take our morning tea break a little bit early. It's 10 to 11. If we just take a 10-minute break, and we've got the people from the Christchurch Foundation coming here at 11 o'clock, so we'll come back at 11 to do the Christchurch Foundation paper, and then after that continue with the rest of the agenda. So let's now adjourn the meeting. I'll adjourn the meeting till 11 o'clock. Thank you.
We will move to item 20, because David, we've already done the resolution to include the supplementaries, haven't we? Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, thanks everyone. So obviously, as Leanne and Andrew noted this morning, they're conflicted on this one, so won't be participating, except Leanne's going to sit at the end of the table with Humphrey and Amy if there are questions for the foundation. So that's a decision, Leanne's made. So what we could do is then, do you guys, so Len and Linda, do you want to talk through your report? What we might then do is, if Humphrey and Amy and Leanne want to come and add something to it, and then we can just go through questions. So I guess the way we'll play it out is, if there are factual questions on the report, we'll talk through the officers, or, the staff through that. But if it's more around some of the issues that you guys can't answer, then I think it's appropriate that Amy and Humphrey can answer those. So do you want to walk us through the report, please?
Thank you, Chair. Morning, everybody. The report we've provided came from the review that was requested as part of our funding agreement. The foundation's been in existence for 3 years. Deloitte was commissioned to undertake the work. We've supplemented the work that's done by Deloitte to do a bit more additional benchmarking, and the report has been, we've tabled, is we believe a balanced report which provides, there are questions, and probably, as you say, the foundation would maybe best to answer those directly, but we'll answer any questions on the quality of the information that's in the report. So we'll just leave it up to the committee.
Sure. So do you want to go through, I wonder if it's useful before we go to questions, Amy and Humphrey, and Leanne, if you want to, do you want to just maybe give us a quick update, and then we just open it for questions for everyone? I think it's going to be easier. Yeah. Just so we get the whole picture before we delve into questions.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chair. I'll just make a couple of observations and then very happy to take any questions from councillors. So just the Christchurch Foundation, first of all, is owned by the people of Canterbury. The Christchurch Foundation chairman is owned by the people of Canterbury. They are who, as chairman, I look to do my reporting. The Christchurch City Council has generously decided, in its wisdom, to support philanthropy, and the most practical way you guys have elected to do that is by giving an annual grant to the Christchurch Foundation. That annual grant started at $600,000 per annum. It's now running at $540,000 per annum, and it is my wish as the chair of the foundation to reduce that further by the end of the 6-year period. We have given you extensive reporting, and to your council staff extensive reporting. We are audited by two parties, two professional parties, and we have responded to and supported the review that the council wished to make and was built into the document on day one. We in fact built it in for you, that you had the opportunity to review the operations of the foundation. I just wish to share with you that Deloitte and Wellington, I didn't meet the people, but we came in by voice. They had a brief from the council, and that's your brief, it's not ours. That brief it says what it says. In my view, it was a very strange brief, but that's your issue, not mine. And I did ask the Deloitte people in Wellington what experience they have in reviewing foundations, because we're a new phenomenon in New Zealand. It's only over the last 15 years or so or 20 years that foundations have got going. Deloitte's answer to me, and I think councillors should know this, is that they had not reviewed a foundation before. So I thought, okay, we'll give you some help here. So I personally answered every query that was raised under your brief, not mine, to assist Deloitte. My chief executive did the same, and we gave them full access to our auditors and our accountants, full access. The only access we will not give them is confidential information that pertains to our commercial clients who support the foundation and philanthropy in our city. It's none of Deloitte's business. There was no conclusion they could draw from it except to say, haven't you done well? So that's the background, and we're very happy to answer questions. And we do think, I suppose as a fundamental thing, Chair, we do think that the comparative exercise is flawed, and Amy will detail you in a very simple manner why that is flawed, and maybe that would be quite a good first question to ask, because the media seem to be wanting to compare cents per employee or some crazy ratio, which is completely irrelevant. And I have had other chairs of and trustees of foundations around New Zealand saying, don't these people understand that every foundation in New Zealand is different? And what you have with us is a completely different foundation that operates in Auckland and in Dunedin. And interestingly enough, one thing we take increasing pride in is that foundations around the world are reaching out to look at our model, and so disaster assistance requirements, which we provided under your request, backed up by the Prime Minister for the Moss massacres. So we're a very efficient tool for the people of Canterbury to own and support, and my judgment is that that support is rolling in increasingly month on month, not necessarily in dollars, but an understanding of what we stand for and what we are doing and how we are networking, connecting. And finally, we are donor-centric. We love our donors and we help them. We are not so interested in the causes because that looks after itself. Thank you.
Just to give you a cost comparison, so I understand the intent and the need to want to compare us to understand value for money of your investment. It's a good one, but to remove the income that we generated to support the victims of March 15 and to keep the costs we incurred in that meant that the figures were a little skewed, and I'd just like to talk you through that. Remembering that we were established on the back of the Canterbury earthquakes to respond to a need here in Otautahi that wasn't filled when the earthquakes happened, which was to help those people that love our city and its surrounds to give to our recovery. And a part of our establishment that this organisation is set up was that we were to respond in times of crisis. And on the day of the shootings, I received a call from Leanne at 10 o'clock at night asking us to set that up. We set up an entire gifting platform overnight at no additional expense to the council, and then began what is the most complex funds gathering and distribution process that has ever been run in New Zealand. And I've had that said to me from my peers across New Zealand who have rung in support over the last 2 days. So if we do add back in the funds generated for March 15, that means to the end of last financial year we had raised $12.6 million for this city and its people. Our total OPEX costs in that time were $1.8 million, and that brings down our OPEX cost per dollar to 13 cents in the dollar, which is significantly more efficient than what was in the report. And that would be the one thing I'd really like to ensure that you understand. That swallowed us whole for a year and a half. When you talk to Raf and I, we will both tell you that's the hardest thing we have ever done professionally. It was thousands of hours. And the other unintentional consequence of this process is I've received phone calls over the last 2 days from members of that community that now think you don't care because you removed it out of that calculation. And that is devastating. But moving on, since the end of that last financial year, we've raised an additional 2.94 million to date for our city, which brings us to a grand total of $15.9 million over that period of time. I also want you to understand that your contribution to us, if we continue at the existing reduced funding levels that we requested, a reduction in funding from you, of 540, your total investment in us till the end of the 6-year period in our establishment will be 3.4 million. Under contract and funds that we've already distributed back to you is 2.5 million, meaning that your annual investment to establish the Christchurch Foundation, a legacy for the city that will last for generations, is $150,000 a year. And I've got 2 more years to maybe generate some more revenue for you. So that's the situation that we're in, and I thank you for the opportunity to talk you through that.
Great, thank you, Amy, for that. Leanne, are you going to add anything, or?
No, I confirm what Amy said. From the outset, Christchurch didn't have a foundation at the time of the earthquakes. The Prime Minister had to step in and set up a Prime Minister's Fund. The Mayor of the day set up a Mayor's Fund. In fact, when I became the Mayor in 2013, there was a small amount left in the kitty, as it were. In the cost-sharing agreement, there was provision for philanthropic contributions. There were none to be obtained. The issue was brought to the council, and it was left to us to find a way forward, and that's where the concept of the Community Foundation, a place-based giving organisation, which has been established in New Zealand since about 2003. So what Humphrey has said is right. This is a relatively new model of place-based giving. We did look at the Rata Foundation as an existing organisation, but they can't fundraise. They can't gather new money. They can't accept bequests. They simply distribute that which has been already provided to them. So we did look at other options. This has been an exceptional organisation. I never imagined for 1 minute that I would be in a position to call on the foundation to establish a fund in the wake of a massacre in the city. But I was able to make that phone call at 10 o'clock in the evening. I thought it might have been slightly later than that. As the amount of money that was coming in through the victim support platform, the Give a Little page, was just mounting and mounting and mounting, and that was not a sustainable model, as it proved to be. This model proved to be, within 36 hours, our chief executive, who'd been in the role for a relatively short period of time, had won the confidence of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet and had the Prime Minister's support for the platform, Our People, Our City Fund. And I was enormously proud. The last thing that I wanted to say was that I've sat around the foundation board table as a trustee, and I do so with incredible pride and gratitude for every single trustee that sits around that table and hasn't taken 1 cent in fees since it was established. The people have come on board because they believe in leaving a legacy for the earthquakes, for the mosque shootings, for any challenge that comes our way. And then with some of the initiatives which you're all well aware of, some of the initiatives that are not about a financial contribution, but a legacy project, for example, the Tui Corridor I'll just mention.
Leanne, I'm just conscious of time.
Yeah, but I just wanted to say that with this is the legacy for the city.
Cool, thank you. Len and Linda, I wonder if you want to just join at the table so that we can then direct the questions, as you said initially, either to the foundation or to relevant staff. Okay, so Does anybody have any questions initially? Or, I mean, I'm happy to. Oh, okay. So we'll go Jake first, and then Anne.
So one, I've got about 3 questions. One that's just come out of what's been presented. The costs in terms of distributing that money, and I will use the word distribute that money because that is money that would have come in anyway. I'm thinking particularly of RAF's fees. Was that from your normal operations budget or was that funded elsewhere?
Yes, it was from within our operations budget, but we also received $100,000 from the government to help pay RAF to do our ongoing support of that community as well.
So did it? Okay, right. Okay. And in terms of the documents, you haven't handed over a few documents. Why not the conflict of interest?
Chairman, I did answer that.
Oh, I'll be keen if you can just elaborate.
The confidential information for commercial customers? Donor agreement.
No, I'm talking about the conflict of interest register.
Oh, the conflict. We manage conflicts perfectly well. I spent my whole life managing conflicts.
Yeah, that's fine, Humphrey, that's fine, but it was a request, that's one of the concerns raised.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're just keen to understand why it wasn't provided.
Are you talking about conflicts of interest?
They want to see a conflict of interest register.
Yeah, around related
parties.
Oh, well, they can, yes, they can.
Not a problem.
No, I wasn't aware they actually want to see one. I thought they thought we had one.
So
I'm sure you do have one. I'm sure you're very capable of managing it.
Yes,
but I would like to see it. Would be great.
Certainly.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely.
Happy to pass it on.
Not a
Send
problem.
it through when I get
Not a
it.
problem. Yep.
Easy.
Yeah.
I think I had one more. Can you tell me more about the potential future options you see around self-funding? It seemed to me that the idea was to essentially split the existing cost amongst a larger number of councils.
Could I start with that and then Amy will follow up? I only learnt one thing from the review, Mr Chairman, and that was that the Auckland City Council give an annual grant to their foundation of $250,000. I thought you might all be interested in that. I think that really is a sensible benchmark, and if we ended up in that position, I think that would be a very good outcome.
We've always had the intent of establishing a fee-for-service model, Jake, and we've been working towards that. We've got a number of corporate partners already that are providing that, so it wouldn't just be local government that would be seeking that relationship, it's with corporates as well. So, for example, Meridian already gives us $100,000 per annum towards our operational overheads, and it's because of that generosity we could come back to you guys and ask for less money.
Anne, do you want to go through yours?
Both of my questions have been answered. Thank you.
Okay.
That's
Just
cool.
just one on that conflict, and then we can move through on that conflicts of interest register. So, I mean, obviously the report came to the board, or to the trust, the foundation, before it was sort of signed off. So our understanding was you had a chance to review it.
Humphrey did. Yes.
Yeah. Because it just says, like in the appendix 4, it says that wasn't provided. I just wondered whether we'd looked
It was probably an oversight on my behalf, and I apologise for that. We're in the middle of our audit at the same time that this review was underway, as well as trying to write annual reports and in the middle of doing mop-up for financial year for our legal requirements for the Charities Office. I may have missed that,
Right.
and we're quite happy to share that.
Okay. Is it on your website or anything?
Well, it's not on our website, but it's in our minutes every day, and I'm very happy to share that with all of you. It's
Right.
not a problem.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Any other questions? Yanni?
Thank you. Do you want questions of staff now as well?
Look, I think the best thing is just ask what question you've got, and then they can determine who's most appropriate to answer it.
Oh, right, okay. So I just was interested, and I couldn't quite tell from the response we've had back, in regards to the support agreement, the annual request. Can you just advise what years the annual request have been made in terms of the foundation? So what years did they submit the annual budget request, and what's the record of us approving up to $600,000 that we've had?
So we're in our 4th year currently, financial year of funding from you. Of those 4 years, only 2 years we've drawn down the full 600,000. There was 580, I think, in the first year and a half. It wasn't 1 year, it was a year and a half period. And this year we did 540.
Sorry, my question really was to staff.
Oh, sorry.
What year have they received the proposed annual budget, and what record is there of approving or seeking further information from the foundation as part of that consideration?
So we've had 2 budgets from them, 2020
21 and 1920. The reports came up to council. You considered the budgets and agreed them or noted them, and I sent you that the resolution and the paper yesterday in response to your request.
Yeah,
I sent it via the CE's office.
So we've had the annual report, and we have had the one report, the financial information. But in terms of the 2 years prior,
We did provide them to you, but it was to a staff member that's not here now.
right?
There seemed, I can't talk for what happened before I came into it, but there seemed to be some acceptance of the view that because the funding was in the LTP, that it was approved, and I think that's what had happened in those earlier 2 years, and I think and that's been rectified now.
So the foundation did submit the annual proposed budgets, and we just
We didn't. I
we
certainly
didn't look at
haven't
them.
seen them and don't have them, and the person that did presumably receive them is no longer here.
Do we know? And it's a bit unfortunate that the Deloitte authors aren't here. But did they go through look at the annual proposed budget?
They didn't ask me.
Well, it was part of the information they were given.
Okay, so can we get a copy of what the annual proposed budgets were from those 4 years?
No. Look, I've got no information on those prior to 2019-20.
Right.
If you want to see that, I'm really happy to sit down with you and show you all that information.
Well, I would have thought as part of the review, that's quite a significant.
Well, can't give them documents that I don't have. That was the.
But the foundation must have them if they've submitted them. So
we've got them.
We're happy to share them with you. If you want to go through.
The general ledger, one of the questions that Deloitte has asked if they can see the general ledger from 2019 to 2020 and from 1st July 30th. Has that been provided, or why?
We're told to contact directly KPMG and PwC to receive whatever information they wanted as our accountants.
Right.
And if they haven't received that, I am aware they didn't actually contact and ask that. So.
Mr. Chairman, I'd be really interested to know what this review has cost you.
Yeah, I don't have that answer now, but it's
Really?
it would be less than our contribution to you, I'm sure.
That is another point.
But yeah, but anyway, just as a general observation, Councillor, this review, which really, in my view, in my language, turned out to be a sort of another audit, and the interesting thing about this is it's really an audit over $150,000. That's the difference between salaries and wages, what we're spending. Like, I mean, it's just ridiculous.
So, sorry, I don't think that's fair that we get that sort of commentary.
Yeah,
we're considering this report.
Yeah, that's okay. Humphrey's entitled to his view, but do you want to just keep going with your questions?
Are we going to have a debate now about the ridiculousness or not of the audit?
No, we've already heard from staff that it's balanced. Yeah.
So just in 3.4 of the report that we had, it said staff endeavoured to probe the following two key questions relating to budget with the foundation without success, and that was potential for achieving financial donations in the year ahead in order that some idea of value for money can be determined. And the second one was whether the tree gifting and other activities that the foundation is doing that are non-financial. So I'm just concerned that we do have, we have kind of had advice around the fact that we've been unable to get answers to questions that staff have raised with the foundation and why that is.
So we've had several over 2.5 hour sessions with Deloitte explaining them to how projects like the Tui corridor work.
Sorry, this is council staff,
council
not.
staff. Okay.
This was before the Deloitte's review. This was from our Finance and Performance Committee from 12th of August last year in the budget for 2020-21.
Yeah, so following that, Humphrey and Amy did come in and give you a briefing on that, on their work program and on their budget.
But why were we unable to get that information ahead of?
We came and briefed you on that here.
Look, I think it's fair to say that we are engaging with the foundation, have been engaging with them over the past 18 months or so to try and get to a point where they understand our requirements and we understand their requirements, and I think we've had some progress on that, and we are getting to a point where the information that we're getting is meeting our needs.
Right, so in regards to the Deloitte report, the information that's been sought in terms of the quarterly reporting, we're no longer seeking that, or we are?
We're going to be sitting, since the report's come out, we're going to sit down with Amy and say, these are what we think are the deficiencies within the quarterly reporting. And that's mainly around transparency on financials and transparencies on some of these, on these non-financial ones. However, we haven't had that opportunity yet, but we will be doing that. And
sorry, can I just be clear? The advice that we've had back, and the email that I got back, was that we had, yeah, I'm happy to quote it to you, but it says that we have asked for that previously. So we have reported, we have asked for reporting that is akin to that recommended by Deloitte with little success. I'm trying to understand, given that we've historically been asking for that information, why we haven't had it.
Right, so we haven't had that information because I believe we haven't had a robust enough conversation between our two parties as to why that information is needed. And I believe that at this point in time, we're able to have that conversation. I'm confident that we're going to be able to get more informed reporting.
Right, okay. And just, I guess when you look back at the establishment, we were sold quite clearly on the fact that Rata was going to contribute to the operational costs. And so I just wanted to check, I mean, both Ngāi Tahu and Rata were held up as groups within the city that would join in. We would share operational costs. So I was just really interested to understand what contribution Rata has made in terms of operational costs, and also what other parties in terms of operational funding through like Ngāi Tahu or others that could be involved going forward.
So we've had ongoing conversations with Rata, including, as it was in that report, which I was privy to as well. The idea was there to approach Rata to see if we could collaborate to have cost-saving win-wins, working in collaboration. Our conversations with Rata have been ongoing in that space, but we're two fundamentally different types of organisations. Where there is opportunity to collaborate, and those meetings were as recent as 2 weeks ago, is around, and we do already work together around some of our distributions, and when we're working alongside the same projects, information sharing, and in fact their chief investment officer's coming to our board. Now we're at the point we've got money to invest to help advise our thinking around that, which is incredibly useful. They had none of the systems at startup that would have supported an organisation like us. They aren't set up to manage donors. They have a pot of money that they have, they invest and then distribute the revenue off that annually. We do part of that, but we also have the other end of that process, which is about building relationships with people that love our city, and it surrounds encouraging them to gift to causes within our city, and that requires quite specialist skills and software to do that. So they've given us $12,500 to date, where we joint ventured on the Vital Signs project, which is research we've shared with you and made public, which is looking at what are the priorities of residents of Greater Christchurch. That is the only funding we've received from them at this point in time.
To establish the foundation, were we told that there was an agreement with Rata Foundation of an estimated $225,000?
Could I try and answer that, Chairman? I saw that draft agreement. It was drafted by someone in the council, and I read through that, obviously, and I went and met the chief executive of Rata at the time. And I mean, it was a draft agreement. There was, it was, I came away from that meeting thinking that the only real synergies between what they do and what we were wishing to achieve was really accommodation. and that would have been fine, except that their location wasn't, in my view, right for us. Secondly, at that time I thought we would probably be able to get rent-free accommodation in a location that does suit us, and subsequently we ended up paying you guys the rent.
Right.
So, you know, like...
So what's the opportunity going forward to get, like, because I thought that was one of the benefits when we were considering establishing it, was that we had a joint approach to supporting the City Foundation. So in terms of RATA giving an ongoing annual operational grant, is that something that's been, have you applied to them for
No, it would be an
operational
application
funding, or-
process because we don't meet the criteria of some of their grants rounds. There's certainly ongoing conversations, but that's a decision made by RATA's board for political appointments. So we need to work through that process. Certainly we would appreciate some operational support from RATA.
So in terms of a way forward, a shared partnership where council, RATA, Ngāi Tahu contribute
I don't
for the
think we'll get
operation?
funds from Ngāi Tahu. I think the easier place to get collaborations towards our operations is in our corporate partnership program, which is already succeeding and we're already generating revenue out of that. Yeah.
Thanks.
Cool. So Yanni, we might just move around, and then if you've got more, we can come back. Mike?
Thank you. Just a few questions, and just on something Leanne said about that the trustees haven't received any fees. So that's all the trustees from the get-go?
Yes.
Yeah, including London.
The other question, and I thought it was a valid question, so this is to staff, what has been the cost of this reviewing?
We set aside $35,000 and haven't spent that money yet.
Okay. And so was it a surprise to see that, you know, the donations that were related to the mosque attack were not included, yet the cost to administer it were included in this review?
Is that to start?
Yes, to staff.
Look, I do want to be clear that the benchmarking exercise was not perfect. We had to work off publicly available information. It's very clear in the report that it's indicative only. We weren't able to take out costs, in this case the costs of the mosque, the costs that the foundation incurred to manage the mosque donations. That's very clearly stated in the report. The idea around the benchmarking was that it would give an indication of where the foundation sits alongside these others. We noted that the other two had been established long before and were in kind of more of a business as usual mode of operation, whereas the foundation was new. We also noted that the different ways of treating the income that was coming in would throw up differences. We also noted that there were different arrangements of funding across them. Essentially, we were really just trying to give a very indicative position, and it's come out reasonably balanced, really.
I'd like to say it's really hard to do. It's something that the sector really struggles to do, and I think that the team at the council have actually tried with the best endeavours to do that, and I support them in that.
I was just trying to me though it looks like, and you were saying it earlier, that the fact that, you know, we're including donations here but not actually the cost to administer it, it's fair to say it's skewed the end result.
Sure, and I would also say that in the revenue and costs of those other two foundations, there could be similar sorts of things sitting in there. For example, we took out the Hamilton Foundation's revenue that came to it from the Crown for the regional theatre, but we couldn't identify what costs they might have incurred in dealing with that. As I said, it's a rough look at where the foundation is sitting, and it's very hard to do, and that's why there's a lot more information in the report other than just the benchmarking.
Mr. Chair, could I make an offer that we sit down together and develop a measurement framework that would serve both parties' needs?
Well, that's really useful. Let's get around the questions, and then when we get to the resolutions, we'll no doubt have...
Just one
Oh,
last
sorry,
question.
Mike.
Sorry. So, putting that aside, is there anything else from this review that, so this is the staff as well,
Right.
that have, I guess, you know, have sort of, oh, that's a bit, I didn't see that coming. You know, is there any surprises in there? Anything that was unseen that sort of come to light from this?
I think we are learning as much as possible from this as well. This sort of review is a dual approach. We had done a number of pieces of work, well, not me, Linda. Linda has done quite a bit of work understanding how the foundation works within our scheme of things. Being not a CCO, it's quite a difficult beast to deal with. So what we learnt from the Deloitte's review is you can't ask all the questions, and so therefore some things are going to be, if you took an assurance review, i.e. an audit, you'd have a different result to saying where does the foundation fit in within the philanthropy community within Christchurch or New Zealand. It's different, or the world per se, because the work that they've done offshore, which will lead to future revenue, I mean, we haven't isolated that. We haven't said that we've got zero revenue from offshore and it's X amount of dollars in expenses. Why do that? Because there's no point desegregating all that information. What we've got here is a situation that this is, Moscow tax was different, so therefore we isolated that as much as we could. Therefore, what we saw going forward is that the next budget that comes in, we'll be looking at those benchmarks, seeing the revenue go up, seeing our cost per dollar go down, and that's what we're hoping, is that the assurances we've received from the Trust is that with revenue going up, those percentages will drop over time, and that's the logic of this organisation. It's intergenerational. We're expecting to see, did we learn anything? Yes, we have learned, but I think working more closely with Amy and the chair, Mr. Austin, we're going to get there. We're going to get there.
Thank you.
Jake, and then...
Just in terms of answering that big question, and we're dealing a lot in the theoretical in terms of what may or may not be in other foundations' balance sheets, why don't we just, discuss what actually has been raised. So if you take up the 11.4 for the mosque shootings, the just over 1 for Turanga,
2.5 under contract for Turanga. So you've received one, but there's another 1.45 million.
and that's that revenue that you're getting yearly, that 700k.
Yeah. No, 350 per annum.
Right.
The 700 was 2 years together in one payment.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What's the outstanding? How much have you raised excluding those two things?
Excluding Turanga and the
Mosque shootings.
1.2, roughly $4 and a bit million. A quick calc in my head. Yes.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah.
Anne?
Thank you. I'm very much aware that this is, you're in a start-up phase here still with the foundation. And so would it be fair to say that a lot of what we're talking about is a learning process, and that as the foundation continues, that a lot of this will be dealt with and ironed out? Would that be fair?
Yeah, I think the review process has been, as the staff have said, an excellent opportunity for us to learn around how we need to communicate with each other going forward. I mean, my chair's made it very clear, and it's certainly my intent too, that we are working extremely hard to remove our reliance on council funding. That is our goal. We've made that very clear, and we've made good progress to that this year, and it's our intent to do that. We're acutely aware of the deadline to the end of our agreement and are working to honour that. And I think what we've discovered now is that through this process, there's ways that we can both work together to create great outcomes. And there's a really exciting outcome coming next week, where we've worked very closely with Council to deliver a huge community outcome which has been funded in full, and this is additional money not already in these figures, to deliver a great outcome for our city, and you'll all be receiving invitations to that later today. So the opportunity to collaborate is clear, and it's providing exciting opportunities for our city and its residents, and we've certainly seen that in our collaboration with some of your other CCOs like Christchurch NZ. I can't praise enough the collaborative way that we work with them. We are hand in glove representing the city globally, because we are a global organisation. Our focus, somewhat reduced due to COVID this time, is focused on helping bring new money to our city to amplify and make us a better city, a better version of what we are already.
Can I ask one other question?
Sure,
Humphrey, you alluded to the fact that Auckland Council gives a grant to a foundation. Are there other models throughout the country where that happens? what do other councils
Well,
do?
I've asked Amy if she could get some data on that because
Te
it's
Karaka.
quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, so New Plymouth District Council's just gone into supporting Te Karaka, which is their community foundation there, and they've just begun supporting them because they've replicated our corporate partners model and launched it into New Plymouth, and part of that has been receiving funding from council to do that on an annual basis.
And from our point of view, we can only base our stuff on publicly available information. And trying to distill that information out of council's reports and other things becomes difficult unless it's explicit. And so therefore that's when it becomes more difficult. And analysing it, as we've said, is from there's nothing you can pick up which shows everything on philanthropy in New Zealand. It just doesn't work like that. Yeah.
So just, have you got any more, Anne, or are you? Yeah. So just on that New Plymouth one, how much are they contributing?
I don't know, but I can find out. I'm certainly happy to let you know.
Right. Okay. Okay. Cool. Does anyone else have any, Jimmy?
The staff information 2.24 regarding to the cost meeting objective. I just want to know this the figure, the each donated dollar foundation incur 56.1 cents of cost. This is from the beginning up to now, or what, is yearly basis, or what's time frame? This one figure. Where this figure come from?
Well, the figures over the period of which they've been operating.
Yeah, it may true. Yeah, I'm concerned because while we did have those the most attack, those the kind of the event, probably this figure will be increased a lot.
We actually came down, Jimmy.
Pardon?
So if you add the money we raise, the fee per dollar into that calculation drops to 13 cents in a dollar.
13
if
cents.
we add that in, yes.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
The other one is the 2.27. This if foundation, you particularly emphasize if made a reduced operation expenditure by 24% over 2019 to 20. But your volunteer try to reduce the 10% from the 600K to 540K. So this percentage difference. My question is whether this reduction, one is whether you still can meet your objective. The other one, this figure still gap. What's the reason there? There's a gap.
Well, could I perhaps talk to that second part of that, which is the funding reduced by 10%?
Yes.
But the budget, the 24% relates to the budget between last year and this year. So the budgeted costs, they have funding, other funding that goes towards their costs. So their costs are higher than our funding. So I'm just saying their budget has reduced by 24%. Our funding has reduced by 10%.
Okay, so you mean it's not only the all council grant the funding to the foundation, but plus some other source of funding together. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Right. Are there any other questions? Oh, Yanni, or can I go? I've got a couple, and then we might go to you because they might hopefully answer them. So in there, it talks about the fact there's 300 grand sitting for additional operating costs if needed. Is that correct?
We've used some of that money over the time. So
How much is left?
We had to draw down upon some of that in our support of the victims of March 15. So we incurred an additional $115,000 in costs over that year and a half period. So that's drawn down against that.
So how much is left now?
I'd have to go and look at the specific figures.
Because I thought it said, I'm sure it said in there there's 300.
No, well, yeah, I'll come back.
That was the total amount set aside.
Set aside.
But they can tap on that at any point in time to cover their funding costs.
But that's still set aside now?
We have a small amount of money set aside for a rainy day because we never know when something like March 15 may occur again and we need to gear up, which is sadly the reality we've faced in the last 10 years in this city.
Okay, that's interesting. So the other one is just around, I guess, and I raise it every time. So you've got 2 more years of the funding cycle, and it's worth noting it's up to 600,000. At the end of that, like, how confident are we're going to get to a point? Because it talks about the need to have, $17 odd million.
Oh, we won't be funded purely for endowment by that period of time. It took Acorn, who's the most established community foundation, 17 years to get to self-sufficiency using only an endowment model, which is why we've gone to the fee-for-service model as well as the endowment model to generate additional operation revenue, so we can remove our reliance on you.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be fair to say it would be nice to continue to have a relationship with the council beyond that date if you see value in that, but I wouldn't expect it to be anywhere near at the levels that it is now.
Yeah, okay. And so what work are you doing with other councils at the moment, sort of touching on, I guess,
I'm
what Jake
aware that
mentioned?
this is a public meeting, so I'm really happy to have that conversation in other locations. We're in the middle of negotiations with a number of other entities around operational funding right now.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
So is it fair to say then, if you are doing that come 1st of July, the 540 that's currently on budget won't
I
be
would
necessary?
hope it would be significantly less again if this last 2 days hasn't had a negative impact on that.
Right, okay. And Humphrey, the one about the Auckland, was it 250,000? So if we were to take that approach now, can you just talk, like if we were to look at amending the money that's on budget now, can you just talk me through how that would work? You'd obviously have to go back to your board and make a few changes.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, Chairman, it's your decision as to the extent of support you want to give to philanthropy in Christchurch. That's the first question. The second is, do you want to do it through the Christchurch Foundation? So assuming you come to a conclusion on that, then I think it would be appropriate to benchmark us off the sort of running average of New Zealand cities.
Right,
You know,
yeah.
just come to a sort of a sensible dollar sum, and if that was, if we could wave a magic wand and say that would be your policy come the end of this funding period, then we would 100% pick up the balance of that funding ourselves, of the cost to run the foundation.
Okay.
It might mean some adjustment in our current structure if we hadn't got secured agreements, but I have no doubt that we'd still exist.
So it's quite
but in what way would we exist, and how quickly we could have impact for our city would be significantly reduced.
Yeah, sure.
Would be my
Okay,
response.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yanni?
Yeah.
I just want to be clear on a few things. One is that from council staff's point of view, there's nothing of concern in the proposed budgets that have been put forward in terms of the operational cost of the foundation.
We're waiting on the next set of budgets, aren't we?
We haven't written them because our financial year is the same as yours, so that's 1 July. No, 1 July. So we're about to start our budgeting process for the next financial year.
But I thought we had to do that by the end of, is it the end of March or the 1st of March?
No, I'm going to give you, we'll have a 3-year forecast for you at the end of April, beginning of May.
Oh, May, sorry, yeah. So we need to, so for this year's, for the upcoming budget, we need to get that by the end of May. Well, we actually need to do it well before then.
Yeah, before then.
Because we have to go back to the foundation.
End of April, we'll have it to you.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the previous 2 years with the budgets, has there been anything of concern of council, any concerns that council staff have had around the cost of operations of the foundation in regards to the money that we've put in?
I don't know so much. Well, yeah. I suppose our concerns have been driven out of needing to understand more about what sits beneath the numbers, but we're very conscious that this is not a CCO, and we can't go. It's really up to the board to set its budget, and to some extent we have to go with the board's requirement to act in the best interests of the trust.
But if we're giving like 600 grand and we see 400 grand for marketing, we'd probably go, oh,
Right,
hang
so
on a
we've
minute.
raised those. We have raised those questions,
Right.
and we rely in good faith on the foundation's ability to convince us that there is method behind, for example, the marketing budget that it has in view of COVID and the closed borders, which means that they're switching, say, funding from travel into a heightened marketing program. You know, it makes sense, and that's, our probing of that has
Okay.
led
So
us
the,
to that
so the key
conclusion.
process for us going forward is to get a resolution by May around what we're going to fund. So the process for us to consider the budget and get staff advice, that will just happen in terms of regular reporting
Yes,
to the Finance and Performance Committee.
yes.
And at that stage, that's the opportunity for us to consider the quantum and the concern around any appropriation of the budget in terms of how the foundation's saying they're going to.
I'm happy to receive that and table that at our meetings.
So I guess the other key thing from the Deloitte report, it really seems to be around the transparency. There's a number of things that, you know, and appreciate while there'll be some commercial sensitivity, there's a lot of comments around not being able to understand the information in terms of value for money, but also outcomes. So just want to be really clear that the conflicts of, the register for both the trustees in terms of the conflicts of interest and the trustees' interest, declaration of interest and the trustees' conflicts, trustees' register, that will be provided. So there's, there's no issue there.
Yep.
We'll be able to see that.
Yep.
Is that public information or is that?
It can be. I don't have a problem with that. Yeah.
So I think that's good.
There's nothing to hide.
That will give confidence to people
Yeah.
around one of the concerns that's been raised in the report.
I think the reference to the conflict of interest is there's some confusion around some of my giving. So to be very clear, up until this year, my company Perception, which now longer doesn't, I've put into hiatus, used to give $50,000 a year in pro bono services. And Deloitte didn't know how to kind of box that up. And it has caused some issues for Tina as well. So I have just stopped that, which is disappointing for the foundation. And that was one of the reasons I took a reduction in my salary, was because I strongly believe in this model, so much so I've got skin in the game. So,
Amy, just on that Perception PR stuff, so did you have staff doing that work, or was that you?
It was staff doing that work.
Oh, right, so you were paying, so it wasn't you doing any of it?
No.
Right.
It was additional pro bono services of up to $50,000 a year.
Yep, sure.
Yeah, and the other thing that's mentioned here is the procurement policy. So again, you've got a procurement policy.
We're not a CCO. We don't operate like a CCO. So
we don't have any money to procure.
Yeah. So I know you're trying to
so
work in a framework that you understand.
I guess the concern is, like, when you spend operational money that we're giving you on services, the process around procuring that.
We would go to market and ask for 3 quotes and choose the best quote, which is normal business activity.
Yeah. Okay. And just the final thing is really probably a question for staff, maybe the foundation. Do you think we need to change the supply agreement to get better clarity around some of these issues so that we don't have this kind of situation happening in the future?
Yes.
Part of what we're doing is we asking the trustees and the chief executive to come to council to explain things, as we do with the other CCOs, and that model will work better in the future. And it means that if we're in regular communication with each other, especially at governance to governance level, it'll actually help the relationship going forward and understand where everybody stands and how much skin everybody's got in the game, as Amy said. Yeah.
And the invitation is very much open to come and chat and sit and look through stuff. We can show you information quite happily that we can't put into the public realm, and I have trust with this group here that we can do that, and I'm happy to do that.
Cool.
But it can't go into the public realm.
Yeah, I guess I would like to see stuff documented, because we've already heard that one of the issues, if it's people to people, is that if a person goes, there's no record of it.
No, I completely understand that. Yeah. That was pretty frustrating at our end as well.
The other thing I would possibly add to that is that the information that we have identified as being required in the quarterly reporting, with the Foundation's agreement to provide that sort of information, then I think the support agreement is fine.
Well, so Yanni, we might just move to Aaron and then we'll try and conclude this if we can.
Yeah, Amy, you keep offering to meet with councillors and so on and so forth. How many have come and met with you and sat down and gone through all their concerns?
None.
None?
None have come to see us and ask us for more information.
Right. Right.
Thanks for that helpful suggestion, Aaron. Any other questions?
I'm a big fan of the old Hui. yeah, talk it out, work out. If you've got problems, ask questions, just directly to people.
Right.
I need to meet with Mike a few times.
Have we got any more questions, Jimmy? And then we'll try and one more. And that's
question,
it.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Because based on the paragraph 2.7, even the foundation, the volunteer reduced the 60,000 K from the 600 to the 541. But in here, particularly mentioned council the support. This criteria is, once every 3 months they will present. The foundation will present to council the kind of even they have the proposed annual budget, the cash flow statement, and any other relevant document, and also the reasonable review, etc. And also on the quarterly activity, the budget forecast. My question is, even this is a criteria, but whether still possible, will be escalation or not in a annual basis up to the July 1st, 23. Still have a two years plus to go. Am I right?
2 years, yeah.
2 years, yeah. Still possible or not? This
What,
is
to reduce our
$60,000
funding
reduce,
more?
maybe
Totally.
reduce more
Yeah.
or not?
No, I'd like to reduce it significantly more.
It's our wish to reduce it.
Yeah.
But I just want to know,
Is
you
it
need
possible?
to reflect your practical kind of the value for money, the service, etc. Based on your
Would that reduction in funding
information,
impact
yeah.
our value and services? It
Yes.
would, if we had a significant cut in funding from the council for the new financial year, we'd have to very quickly move to find a fill or adjust our model. That's the reality.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great.
That's
So
my
we're there,
concern.
basically. Right, so we've got some resolutions on the table. I've actually got one which I think is probably a good workaround based off your comments before, Amy, around the fact you're going out and trying to talk with others about funding that operating cost. So what I might do is just get David to put them up and see whether people are comfortable with this approach. It's far more pragmatic than I think what's there now. Yeah, that's true. Don't worry, it doesn't mention cyclists.
I can with my glasses on just.
Could they be made a little bit bigger?
Yeah, don't worry. Don't worry.
We can't read it either,
We won't rush it through. In a nutshell, it's essentially going to say that we won't agree to the funding today, because that wouldn't, and it'll go through the long-term plan. But what we'll do is we'd prefer that you come back, now that we've had time to flesh this out with you, I think in a really healthy way, after you've gone and sort of got other partners to help fund that, and look to reduce that amount. So I think that's sort of a sensible approach if people are comfortable with it. I think David's going to try and wordsmith it.
Okay, so it's just up there.
So
that's easy to read.
We can make it bigger too if it helps.
Project Foundation provides advice and quarterly reporting as to progress on thank you on achieving the third party protection.
Yeah,
So it's
no,
just-
that's easy, done.
Yeah.
Happy
That
to
okay?
do that, yeah.
Cool.
Sounds
Cool.
very fair and reasonable.
Yeah.
So this doesn't alter the draft LTP that we just started?
No, it'll just be, they'll bring back something at the end. I just think clearly you need a bit more time to go away and work with the other partners to try and get some money in to fund those operating costs, and this might be a sensible way rather than us putting an arbitrary line through it today.
Yeah, no, it makes perfect
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah.
No, happy to do that.
Yeah, but that'll feed part of, but basically, this has to be done by the long-term plan. So if they're,
We have to go back before May to the foundation with
Yep.
what the upcoming budget is for the upcoming.
Yeah.
We can't wait for the LTP. We will not have time. We'll run out of time. This has been one
Well,
of
can
the
we get-
issues that was previously raised
Right.
in last year's annual plan when we discussed this.
Yep.
Because the concern was timing wasn't aligned.
right, so can we, that's a valid point, Yanni. Len or Linda, can you just explain, what I want to know is are those recommendations there, in a nutshell, going to mean that we're not making a decision on the funding today, albeit it's in the draft LTP at the moment, but there'll be a proposal come back from the foundation that in time for the LTP sign-off, we can settle on an amount?
Yes, I said
Or
before,
can I-
Chairman, we will have information to you at the end of April.
Yeah,
That-
I'm sorry, Humphrey, if I can, just the technical, I just want to make sure it technically
The
works with
LTP
the...
includes funding up to 540,000.
Yep.
If we receive their budgets and you decide that it's 500, there's no problem.
Yeah.
If you decide it's 700, there's a problem.
Yeah, but I don't think we'll do that.
Right, okay. Okay.
So is that, so technically this works?
Yes.
So Yanni, is that giving you some comfort? Or do you want that changed? Yeah, so what do you...
It's part of the...
I think we've...
Mr. Chairman, staff have given assurance.
So I'm happy to... so we get rid of the 1 to 4, if that's okay. Yeah. I just think it'll give you a bit more time to make it work, and then we can all go in and have a sensible approach on what level of funding it is.
We can do a workshop and go through it all.
Yep.
Yep. And then you know you're part of that process. Yep.
Cool. So I'm happy to move that. Jake's happy to second it. Is there any discussion?
Did you want to just make reference to the information that in the Deloitte report that staff?
Yeah, hang on, I'll just wait till they've... Can you just move that tick box thing? So request that the Christchurch Foundation provides advice in its quarterly reporting as to progress on achieving third-party funding.
Operation admin costs, but also
but
including the advice from Deloitte over what we should be getting.
Yeah, I think
it
I thought, without going into it, that delegates responsibility.
Do you want the chief executive just to do that?
You're just going to raise that when you go through the advice of the key matters, aren't you?
Yes,
yeah.
I think the resolution as it originally stands is fine.
Yeah.
I think it's clearly the relationship between the staff and Christchurch Foundation is collectively improving, and I expect that to continue.
Yeah, and I think probably the message for yeah. So comfortable. So that's moved, seconded. Is there any debate? That's perfect. The only thing I'd just say is that, look, thank you for coming in and doing this. It's actually really helpful. And I'm pleased we could do it in a public environment, given, you know, how it's played out. Probably the message I've got from this is please go away and get some other funders to help with the operating costs. I know you will.
Yeah.
Hopefully this gives you both the time to go away and make that work with the staff, and then we can come back with a sensible approach for the long-term plan.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
I'd be very interested in that.
Perfect.
No, perfect. Thank
Great.
you so much for your time, and thanks for having us.
We'll put that to the vote. All in favour, say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Excellent. Thank you all for your work.
Thanks, everyone.
What you might want to do is
All right, so coming back to the agenda, the rest of the agenda, we are now at item 10, the financial performance report for the 6 months ended 31st December. Bruce, welcome to the table. Are there any introductory remarks on this report, item 10?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No, the financial report for the first 6 months is very positive. Operating, we have a net $10.2 million underspend at the end of December. That's forecast to be slightly lower at 6.2 million at the end of the year after carry forwards. It was forecast at 1.5 last time we reported to you in September, so it has improved progressively over the last 3 months, and in fact end of January it was 8.4, and we believe it'll be even more positive at the end of February. So that's all good signs. The net underspend's made up of additional revenue. A lot of that is turnover revenue, which also has some additional costs associated with it. Recon sport, consenting, interest costs and Burwood landfill, etc. In terms of expenditure, 13.7 million under budget at the end of December. It's projected to be slightly over budget for those volume reasons at the end of June. We've included a late table at 5.6, which gives a wee bit more detail on those underspends and where they're projected to be at year end and the reasons. In terms of capital, given the earlier report, which was more up to date, that you had a wee bit earlier, I just proposed to leave that information as it is. Happy to answer any questions.
All right, thank you very much. Other questions on this report? Yanni.
Just one question on page 104, which is around the transport. It's just the forecast underspend from the reduced road landscape maintenance. We've just had the exceptions report and we've seen the high level of dissatisfaction and the high number of complaints coming in around roading maintenance. So I'm just really interested in the comment there that says the forecast underspend is from reduced landscape, road landscape maintenance, as this was cut back only to the most necessary maintenance. I guess the concern is to really understand what's behind that, given that, I am getting on a regular basis complaints from residents around basic maintenance not being done. So if we've got money available, is there an issue around allocating that resource, or is that more of a policy decision that's being made?
I would have to defer that question to someone from transport.
I'm happy just to get a memo back.
Yeah,
on that,
let's just get a memo back.
I guess the key takeaway
outside
is
of the meeting.
We've just heard that we've got an issue with streets and transport in terms of maintenance, and here we've got an underspend. So how can we use that to remediate?
We'll bring you a memo back, Councillor.
Thank you. Any further questions, Tim?
Yeah, following on from Yanni's, I'm getting a lot of calls with regards to the maintenance or lack of maintenance to road reserves. So just where that falls, whether it's parks or roading, but around the hills, Broad Oaks would be an example where the locals are really concerned about the fire risk. So it'd be really good to hear back where that, because if it is savings through reduced service, and then there is a concern in the community about that, and there is proven fire risk, then that would be an interesting discussion to have. So I'd be interested in that memo.
Yep, thank you. Anything else on this? All right, thank you. I'm happy to move receipt of the report. James is happy to second. Any debate? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Now moving to item 11, the corporate finance report, again for the period ending 31st December.
Yes.
And Bruce, this is yours as well.
I guess key points in the executive summary. Standard & Poor's reconfirmed our credit rating AA- with a stable outlook. All treasury risk positions within policy limits. There's been a decrease in non-rates debt and also a decrease in rate debt. And in terms of 3.3.2, in terms of the instalment 4 deferments from last year, currently as at last week there's about 127,000 outstanding, so that's largely been paid. Those ratepayers currently have a balance outstanding of about $500,000, so largely that issue's been dealt with. Other than that, 4.2, we've pre-funded 132 million of debt that's due for repayment in May. So we've borrowed that early and invested it until May, making a slight margin on it. So it's that's good, and it reduces our risk of being able to repay that debt. That's about all there is in the report that's of any significance.
All right, thank you. And I would also, and you've highlighted it already, draw attention to paragraph 3.1.1. We obviously were very pleased that Standard & Poor's reaffirmed our rating at AA- in the current environment. That was particularly good news, so we're very happy about that. And just one question on the comment you made around the rates debtors. Is that tracking pretty much as we would expect, given the COVID-19 payment extension? Is that how we would have expected that to track?
Yes. Simple answer is yes, it is, and it's quite positive. the rates debt is not significantly more than it ever has been, really.
Yeah. All right, thank you. Any further questions on this report? All right, again, I'm happy to move receipt of the report. Sam, you'll second. Any debate? All those in favour say aye. Against? That's carried. Now we move to item 12, the capital delivery major facilities elected member updates. Alistair, welcome back to the table.
Thank you.
Any commentary on this?
There's a couple of updates that's worth, just a couple of things worth noting. The Hornby elected member update, we just won early works has been confirmed and will be awarded and will be underway in March. The blessing is this Friday, tomorrow, so that's a couple of really good steps forward. Design is moving at a pace, so we're looking to prepare to go to market shortly on Hornby as well. Metro Sports, we've probably talked enough about Metro Sports, but there has been some substantial activity on site, and for those that blind, you certainly can see the structure going up at the moment around the city from every window in this building anyway. So talk to Old Municipal Chambers. We continue to carry out cyclical maintenance. The agreement that we've got with the City of Christchurch Trust and Box 112 is complete now. I'm working directly with Box 112 and the City of Christchurch Trust to I now sit on their PCG, so their project control group, and they're working towards through developed design into detailed design, and they've got quite a lot of that work completed to date, so they're looking to apply for consents very shortly. So, and they're also commencing the wrap of the building within the next month as well, which is another cost that they're undertaking. There was a question around maintenance coming to an end, which will come to an end in this financial year on that particular project because of the handover and the responsibilities sitting with the trust. So, and they'll take that further. And the timeline currently for construction is still late 2022 completion on the current programme of work. Just on the elected member update for the square, something to note is the police kiosk demolition, which is due to be let in March and will commence in March. That's the only thing I really want to mention on the square in particular. And the Performing Arts Precinct is moving along at a pace, and there are papers coming through in March for Council's approval and the F&P Committee approval. So nothing more to say really on the reports there. Oh,
thank you.
Probably Linwood, sorry. Yep, Linwood's moving along at a pace, and I'm actually missing the PSG at the minute.
Okay, great. Thank you. So moving to questions, Pauline.
Yeah. Thank you. Just on the square, I see that due to the distinction being a quarantine facility now, it's delayed that work around that southeast. But you've also said there's a slight amendment of the design of the landscape plan because they require some car access. Is that?
Yeah. So we're in a concept mode at the moment anyway, so we're ongoing discussions with the ownership of the Distinction Hotel. We are continuing to complete those designs in readiness for the MIQ facility coming out of its period as agreed under MB, but it's only minor amendments, that's all. It's not huge, it's just relative information to the ongoing design of that
right, so it's nothing big.
No.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions on this report? Aaron?
Yeah, I just had a quick one, but you've mostly answered it on the Old Municipal Chambers. So by next month's meeting, will we see a new graph down the bottom of the timeline of what will be happening in the completion? Would you have that locked in by then, do you think?
We do have, obviously through the agreement process we've gone through, they've given us an indicative programme already, and it's extremely detailed, to be quite honest. I think it's more around the timing of their start. So their consents they're now getting nearer and nearer to putting their designs in for consents. Once that's established, then we can proceed to understand the actual impacts that will have on the programme delivery.
Timeline.
Yeah. So at the minute, the indicative is as ever is December 2022. So I would expect that to slip into 23, early 23. There's no doubt. But they're proactively trying to make as many steps forward. We're working with them at the moment on access requirements because they're going in and out of the building to review certain areas to inform their structural engineering and also ultimately their architectural design as well.
Right. Right, okay, so that would...
We should get an update in 2 months' time. We certainly should have an update, yeah.
Oh, okay, that's quite good, because you don't want to misread that, because you change one letter and it's cynical maintenance.
Thank you. Yanni.
Just in regards to the square and surrounds, the final bullet point, development of Strand Lane, it says it will be finalised for construction to start after the post office strengthening. It looks really exciting what's proposed for that site, although I did note, I think in the media, that there was a request for a licence to occupy or a lease area from council, and I was just wondering if we're likely to get a sort of report around what's proposed, what the licensing or leasing will be, and I guess also what the work in Cathedral Square around that how that would tie in.
I can respond to the work that's required. With the lease, I'll have to go away and ask and get the relevant information.
Right.
Get the relevant information, but I can certainly talk to the work around, because Armitage Williams are carrying out the work for the Chamberlain building, the old post office.
Yeah.
And we're working with Armitage Williams at the moment around procuring their services to complete that work so that we don't have the same instance that we had with the Spark building, which was 2 separate contractors trying to work together to complete their work in timing with their work.
Yeah,
it's better if we can do it under a set understanding of what their profit and margin is going to be that they'll want. So we're doing this under agreed set terms, really. So, and
I'm really happy to hear that. I think it just makes so much sense. So thank you. What I was trying to understand though, in terms of decision making about what goes there, is there a plan that we've already approved, or is there a landscape plan that comes back?
This is a reinstatement of the pre-existing in that area. It's not going to be a complete redraft of the type of paviours that are going down there. It's going to be like for like, but with strengthening work, obviously.
Is that future proofed for?
Yep, it's the now work really that we're doing. So I can provide the documents that we've got and the designs we've got just as maybe in an email back to yourselves.
Yeah, that's all.
So you've got that information.
Yeah, I think the key thing is, and the concern was raised too, with the distinction that we're not spending money on something that we're going to dig up a year later because we've got some new fancy plan.
No,
this is the permanent work for the medium term. Yeah, okay. That's fine.
All right, any further questions? James, you're happy to move. Do I have a seconder? Sam? Any debate? All those in favour say aye. Against? That's carried. Thank you. And then moving straight on to item 13, the Canterbury Multi-Use Arena elected members update.
So, first and foremost, for those that don't know, I'd like to introduce Chris Thomas. He's the CMUA PD Limited's project director for delivery of this. So, welcome, Chris. I'm not asking him to speak to this, just put names to faces so that you can see. But if there's anything you want to ask, then please do. Do you want to take the update as read, or we just want to give you a quick update on our current status at the moment?
I think we can take the update as read. It's just if there's anything to add that's happened since the update was prepared.
We can talk to. We've just completed, obviously, the RFP closed on 29th of January. We've just spent probably the most intensive reading of document period for about 3 weeks, and we've gone through some fantastic presentations from 3 great opportunities. It's been a highlight of my career to date to see the positive response we've had, and to see the level of capability that wants to come here and do this and carry out this particular project. We obviously can't talk much more about it, really. We're in the process of a due process that we have to go through in order to appoint. So we will be bringing that back to council on the 25th of March, so which will be an agreement to proceed with the pre-contract services agreement. So that's the status of the project today. With regards to on-site works, enabling works are completed to a degree. They're now within the site boundary. The cones or the permanent bollards that are in place on Litchfield and Cashel Street are part and parcel of the permanency and the road stopping exercise that we're going through, which is underway, and the signage that supports that, and the warnings to people and the signing of that. I did speak to Councillor Johansson just before and I've had an update from our project manager regarding ongoing discussions with our transport team in-house regarding the sequencing of the lights in the area and improving that sequencing so that the traffic flow can be enhanced. So that's ongoing. The only other thing we haven't spoken about is signage and further signage to assist the public, and I'll investigate that over the next day or so. So that's the latest update on the actual project itself.
Excellent, thank you. Thanks very much. Are there any questions? Leanne?
Just the one off the transport one, which was surely the lights at Cashel, Barbados can actually be removed now because it's just a T intersection.
Yeah, so that's underway. It's more around the flow on Barbados and Madras, which is being impacted by the sequences of the lights. So the team are currently talking to Transport about how they improve that. So I think
But can you actually switch those lights off in the meantime before they're removed?
That's exactly what they're talking about right now. Is to
Okay,
get
because
that
I mean, there's just been a little bit of chatter around it, and it does seem to be a temporary solution.
Yeah.
Can you take the left and right turn arrows out of all the other lights?
Honestly.
While you're in there? Thank you.
We'll address it.
Thank you. Yanni, you've got a question.
I mean, I know we've kind of considered it, but it does seem quite sad that the NG building is having to be removed. Is there any opportunity? What's the opportunity within the design to incorporate that? Is there any thing? I mean, it's just been in the media again recently. So, is there any solution that could be found possibly to retain that heritage building?
I think I have to refer you back to Lynn's and Lynn's acquiring that as part and parcel of the original recovery plan, and that's where we're at with that particular property at the moment.
So, I mean, I guess I just read the 10-year reflection of the quake, and there's been some pretty interesting and reflective pieces on the loss of heritage, the Majestic Theatre, for example. Is there any way that if that property is acquired, that it could be retained until the design is finalised, so that we don't lose the opportunity to incorporate it if it's possible?
I suppose the intent of the precinct as a whole is not just the precinct. The precinct as a whole is clear, bar that one property, and to maximise the benefits to the community, we've got to give that opportunity to the design team. And the period that we're entering into at the moment is that design consortia phase, which is about maximising the opportunities for the whole of the city, and how we place the eventual arena on the site and locate it is yet to be defined totally. We've only ever been we've only ever had a proof of concept which was about ensuring the quality of the investment case that we put to the Crown and the Council. So yeah, that building sits with Lynn's at the moment. I can't really comment.
Sorry, all I was trying to understand is if it's acquired, does it have to be demolished straight away, or can it be given a bit of a stay while the design...
Mr. Chairman, that's for Lynn's to...
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. As Mary says, we could probably have this discussion when we come back later.
Yeah, okay. I think it would be, I mean...
Yeah, I don't know if others read the pieces that were written about the lost heritage in the city, but it was... I just thought it was quite poignant. Yeah.
But it's also about the future of the city.
The point that you raised, Yanni, is well understood.
To answer, Mr. Chairman.
But let's pick it up at the appropriate time. Yeah. All right. Thank you. Any further questions on this particular report? All right. So I'm happy to move receipt of the report. Tim, you'll second. Any debate? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Against? That's carried. Alistair, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Thank you. All right, now we move to item 14, the closeout report on Stapleton's Road, Randall Street and Peshery Street renewal. So let's take any commentary on this first. We'll obviously take the report as read, but if there's anything that staff particularly want to highlight, and then we'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to take a moment at your discretion to just put a bit of context behind this, because there has been a couple of questions. So,
yeah,
Stapleton's, gosh, I can't even get this straight. Stapleton's, Randall, and Petrie Street are in the Richmond area. The council, many of you will remember the Dudley Creek bypass went through this suburb post earthquake, and it was a big part of the land drainage program at the time. And at the time, also there was skirt works going on across the city. So there were two streets in this report, Petrie Street and sort of 2/3 of Randall Street, needed to be reinstated post the Dudley Creek bypass going down those streets. So, and then, and the Dudley Creek bypass was reported to this committee on the 5th of December in 2018. So that closeout report has been to this committee in the past. Through the 2018-28 long-term plan, there was a lot of feedback from the Richmond community. They'd had a lot of works in the area, they'd had a lot of construction trucks, and they were, and their streets were in pretty poor condition. That was the feedback we were getting. Staff worked with the community and community groups to understand their concerns, and as a result of that, we developed a program of works that was put into the LTP and has since been progressed. These are the first of these streets that you're seeing today. Staff, the transport team also took over the responsibility of the final reinstatement for those bits of Petrie and Randall that the Dudley Creek bypass had wiped out pretty much, because they pretty much had gone down the whole street. They'd taken the whole thing out to put the big culvert down there. And I think post this report, post that time, we have worked together better as teams across council to make sure we are coordinating our works where we can. It doesn't always happen with asset renewals, but when we've got big asset reinstatements like the Dudley Creek bypass, we are trying a lot better to have a better outcome for the community post that works. Other than that, if we jump forward to doing these streets, Kirsty here was the project manager, and on the whole the works went really well. The community's been very positive about what we're doing. We've still got more works going on in that suburb, so there are more streets to report on in the future.
Great, thank you. And thank you for that particular update as well. That helps to put this report in context. I mean, it may be that in future with these reports it would be good to have that contextual information as part of the report, but it's great that you've been able to provide that verbally to the meeting today so that we can see this report in that broader context of the particular situation at the time.
Chair, I'm very supportive of that approach as well, so that it means we don't have to retrofit in the committee.
Yeah, great, thank you very much. So are there any questions on this report? Mike.
I don't know if I can do this as a question, but look, I think everyone agrees, especially in the community, that the outcome after everything was done was really good. But I guess from an elected member's point of view, it didn't seem to be as smooth sailing as this report. And it's great that we've obviously looked at, we've combined the work that were happening to make sure we got everything done. But from my recollection, it wasn't that straightforward to get that little bit of Randall added to this whole project. Outcome was good. But I guess when I look at the lessons learned, there was a workshop and it included a number of people. The one thing that's missing from there, I guess, would be governance perspective. So potentially the ward councillor to say, hey, look, these were some of the issues that we found from our point of view to make sure, I guess, that could be developed moving forward. Sorry, it wasn't really a question.
But can I
yes.
respond? Yes, and we are starting to do that more and more. So we are looking to do the same thing with your own board about the downstream effects works that have been done from the CNC. So that is something that we are looking to try and do more of and report back through the boards as well and get that feedback. I think, to be fair to the roading team and the transport team, the issues that were being had and the concerns that were being had that resulted in the community meeting were about the Dudley Creek bypass. So, and I understand.
I'm not having a go at the transport team.
Yeah.
I'm just saying when we look at the you know, the map of what was done, and it includes the whole length of Randall Street. And I just know when we're going through that time, it wasn't that straightforward, we felt, from our point of view, to actually ensure that the whole of Randall Street was done at the time. Like, the outcome was great,
So
but
we
yeah.
got to the outcome.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
but it was because only 2/3 of the street was funded as far as the...
Yeah, no, I understand that. And I guess, yeah, like I said, moving forward, lessons learned, we just need to have elected members.
And this was back in 2017, 18, when we were having these conversations, so...
Would it be worth putting a noting provision in there, noting that in future closeout reports will invite comment from local councillors?
It's not so much the closeout report, it's the project itself.
Well,
I mean, I
both,
think,
really.
you know, this is the closeout report doing exactly what we want it to do, which is, you know, looking back on the project. Here we've got a report that on the face of it, you know, certainly if you read the report, it would appear that, you know, this project was delivered well and the community were happy with the outcome. All of that is true, but clearly there were some conversations that happened along the way and some frustrations along the way that are not called out in this report as perhaps have been described by the local councillor. I think that tells us something, first of all, about the purpose of these reports. It's good that this report generates the discussion we're having now. Secondly, and picking up on the point that I made earlier, it's important that we put any contextual information into these reports in future so that we get a fair picture of how this project was delivered, but in the context of, you know, how the project, which is the subject of the report, was delivered, noting anything that happened along the way and noting any contextual information within which that project rightly sits.
So to be clear, from the perspective of the whole organisation, both members and officers, the point of a close-out report should be to understand what we did well, what didn't go as well, and what we would change, and making sure we make those changes and they stick. And that's about being a really good learning organisation. I think these reports are very good, but it's capturing all the elements, and I think the members are raising a legitimate issue in terms of how we get that voice. And I know this history, and I appreciate that, but there is a way we can do that, I'm sure.
Yep. Yeah, this is the closeout report doing exactly what it's intended to do, which is saying when we come across, you know, issues like the one that's been described, involving the elected members, giving the elected members a heads up, having early elected member involvement, probably could help avoid that sort of situation or resolve it more easily in future. That's this closeout report, raising that discussion, exactly the purpose of the closeout report.
Yep. Andrew, sorry, just to clarify something, I'm not the local councillor, it's Pauline. I'm just a community board member.
Thank you. Okay. So, Yanni.
I think the problem with like this report is it focuses at a very detailed level on what was done, but it doesn't focus on that high-level strategic question around why land drainage projects weren't incorporated with roading at the start. And that's probably the biggest concern I've got with land drainage, as someone who's had projects in my ward where residents have asked for similar things to happen and they're not happening. So, you know, I'd be really interested if there was any kind of lessons learned around how you can get a greater synergy around a land drainage project, and then what's the outcome in terms of the final roading project. And
I don't think you're correct there, Yanni, because the land drainage work had to be done first, then it became a transport project to reinstate. It's just that one piece of the road was not included in either of them.
All right, can I get some comment from staff on this, if that's possible?
That's not actually 100% correct. The land drainage project was going through, and the land drainage project was needed to reinstate those two pieces of road. As staff, we are looking, and we need to look more at how we can get benefit for the community when we put really large infrastructure projects right through communities like this. We're working hard to try and achieve that moving forward. At the time, Skirt was also working in this area. The transport unit didn't actually have a program of works in the Richmond area, so there was a whole another level of complexity and noise those two streets were always being there. Following the feedback from the community meetings and the LTP, we developed a program of works. Now these projects were on it, and these projects were always prioritised on that, and we've got a prioritised program of works that is rolling out through the Richmond area over the next 10 years.
Got me really confused. Are you saying that then when a land drainage project comes through a street, rips up the whole street, puts a pipe down the middle of it, the land drainage section renews the street or completes the street?
So when a
Is that what you're
utility,
saying?
when a utility goes through a street, so any utility, be it power, anyone, they are only responsible for reinstating what they need to,
And that's
what they have impacted.
That's what I was saying. And so the other end of the street wasn't in their program.
No, it wasn't
That's
in their
right.
program. That's exactly right.
But that's the kind of
But
lesson that
there wasn't a streets program in there
That's
either.
right. That's right.
Because of the skirt works that was going on. So there was a whole level of complexity around this particular area that we then worked with the community, and I think that's the good news story. Land drainage and transport and Three Waters all work with the community, and everyone knows the priority and the program moving forward. So that is the good news part of this.
When I
All
went,
right, so
like, for
Yanni, coming back to
example,
your question,
like the Three Waters kind of department, like, so, I mean, I went and looked at the Chilham Street brick barrel, amazing job they're doing there, but if you go down Chilham Street on the footpaths, that's completely munted, right? So they're going to spend all this time reinstating the middle of the road when you've got buggered footpaths on each side. For a small, well, not small, but for a cost-effective variation to the contract, to do it once and fix the footpath at the same time as you do the road, seems like a really sensible thing to do. So, I mean, that's the sort of lesson learnt that I was kind of hoping that we would get from this, is where there's opportunities to do synergy, here's the process we use to consider it.
So that is a separate matter than you were previously discussing in the last 10 minutes, because that also needs to relate to the fact that might be an additional project that you do not have on budget, and you've just gone through all of the capital programme in terms of proposing what might go forward in terms of the LTP. Your point in principle, Councillor Johnson, I think is well made, and it's ensuring that we both maximise what we do to the community once rather than 5 times, or whatever it might be. And if there is opportunity to do additional in an effective and efficient way, and you have the resources to do that, then we should take those. But do not assume that means every time we dig somewhere up, we're therefore going to take on additional works that are not on budget.
But it's the process to consider whether we do it or not, and at what level. And that was, I mean, without the community raising up in this one, I don't think it would have happened. And some communities won't raise up, but it might be sensible to do it. So if there's a process around it, then we can
Through the chair, it does happen, and it does happen all the time. We sit on the same floor as our colleagues in Three Waters, and they're quite nice people. I quite like talking to them. So we do all the time. We did Hereford Street recently. We've replaced the water main. We did Riccarton Road. We did it all together. So we do it all the time. But as Dawn's just pointed out, it depends on the age of the asset, the condition of the asset, and the budgets that we've got available.
Yeah, I think all of that's well understood, and thank you for that. All right, now I'm keen to move this on because we're at 1:45 already. Anne, I'll come to you for a further question.
It's not a question, it's just actually to reinforce and to endorse what Lynette said. You know, we just had a briefing last night at our community board where we had a team of all those people that were working together to make sure Island, Middleton Road, Riccarton Road were working together. So I think, it is happening.
All right, thank you. Any further questions on this report? All right, so we are removing receipt of the report. I'm happy to move that. Do I have a seconder? Jimmy Chen. Is there any debate? All those in favour say aye. Against, that's carried. So now we move to item 15, the Audit and Risk Management Committee remuneration for independent members. So Linda, you're presenting on this one, and Len, welcome back to the table as well.
Madam?
Are we putting? So we
Is it appropriate to ask Ian to comment?
All right. So Ian, there was a matter came up earlier regarding the fact that we've got the increase in this report There's obviously other information sitting in a public excluded attachment. Would you be able to make some comment on the public excluded nature of what's in the,
Yes.
the reason why the information is sitting where it is?
Yes. It seems to me, from what I've been able to ascertain, that information should have in fact gone into the public part of the report. It was only the comparative information around other local authorities that was to remain in PX. So I suggest a way around that is that we just add a recommendation that the council agrees that the PX attachment remuneration of ARMC independent chair and members be removed from PX and attached to the public report.
Yeah. So that then, just to clarify, brings the remuneration information as it relates to this council
Yes.
into the public report.
Yes.
But the comparative information remains in public excluded because that's not our information to bring into the public arena.
It was provided to us on a confidential basis.
That's fine. All right, thank you for that. So if we can just add that resolution. All right. So are there any remarks from staff on this report? We can take it as read, and the information in it's reasonably easy to understand, I think it's fair to say. Is there anything that you wanted to draw to our attention before we move to questions?
No, we'd like to take it as read. We'll answer any questions.
All right, thank you. So are there questions? All right. No questions. So Sam, you're happy to move. Is there a seconder? Phil, you're happy to second. Is there any debate? Yanni.
Probably doesn't come as a surprise to most people in this room, but I certainly will not be supporting the increase at the moment. I believe with the financial situation we're in, especially with COVID-19 and the impact that that's had on our budgets, that we're not in a position to be able to afford this increase. I think there would be suitable people that would do it for the current fees, and I am not supportive of increasing the fees at this stage.
Sam.
Yeah, thank you. And I do understand what Yanni's saying, but having been someone that went through the process of trying to appoint people to this committee, it's very clear that if you pay peanuts, you will get monkeys. This hasn't been reviewed since 2013. It's a very small amount of money in the scale of things. And like you said, Yanni, in terms of the financial implications, that's why we need really good, competent, independent people. We get incredible value for money from the people we have there now. And so I do hope that people, respect this and do support it. The best thing about this is that we've agreed a process going forward in terms of how we'll review it, so we won't get caught out like this again. But I just need to emphasise, in the scale of things, these guys aren't here doing it for money. They're in the commercial sector. They're paid a lot more than this, and we get tremendous value from them.
I would echo that comment. The independent members and the independent chair, in fact, bring significant robustness and value and vigour to the Audit and Risk Management Committee. It's an extremely important committee of council. A lot of the work that goes through that committee, it needs to be done well. It's one area where there needs to be very clear focus, and certainly those independent members bring that clarity of focus and that rigour to the committee. A different set of eyes, or different sets of eyes from outside of our organisation, particularly around that table, in my view, bring huge value. Just reiterating the comment that Sam has made regarding the recruitment process, we didn't have a wide range of choice when we went through that process. I believe that we were very fortunate to have good people that were able to be appointed, and I'm very comfortable with the appointments that we made. But to suggest that we have a wide range of capable people to choose from certainly wasn't our experience at the time that we made that last set of appointments. Leanne.
Yeah, when I became the mayor, this wasn't a position held by an independent person. We've been really well served by two extraordinary people who've stepped up to taken up that independent chair's role. It previously was chaired by a council. In fact, the previous chair of the Audit and Risk Committee was in the room before Helen Broughton. And I think it's really important that we do have independence and that's what these people bring to the table. This is always a risk when you don't keep the remuneration up to date. And when you let it sit for 8 years, then it looks like a bigger jump than it actually is. So over the period of time, I think if we'd move things gradually, which is the go forward position, then it wouldn't look like the jump that it is. I know that times are difficult for people, but we do need, from a council position, to have independent eyes over our books, and the value that they add to this organisation benefits all the residents of Christchurch. So I'm very happy to support the resolution.
Thank you. Any further contribution to debate? James.
Yeah, look, while I do have some sympathy for what Yanni has put, but I more fully support the statements made since by the other three speakers. But I also want to underline that the fact that we're paying a very low, and it is quite a low fee, doesn't mean I'm pleased that the Deputy Mayor said that we they were happy, or we were happy with what we got in terms of an appointment, because someone mentioned you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. We don't have monkeys.
Thank you. So this has been moved and seconded. I will put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? So we'll just note that. So Yanni and Mike as well. Yep, so we'll just note that. And that's carried. Thank you. All right, so now we move to the resolution to exclude the public, as set out on pages 164 to 166 of our agenda, which I'm happy to move. Sam, you're happy to second. All those in favour say aye. Against? That's carried. And we'll just wait for the room to